Okay, so welcome to all of you officially. Nice to have you all here, full house tonight. So welcome Kim, Archie, Elaine. Let's dive in, shall we? To today's inspirational quote. Always a good place to start. Kind of sets the theme for the day. This one's from Gandhi, actually, which is what he actually said rather than what he was purported to say. So let me share my screen with you quickly, and where we I want to share the screen. There we go. Yeah, so this is what Gandhi actually said. That has been translated and simplified as we must become the change we want to see in the world. But he never actually said that. This was the full quote. So Archie, why don't you read that for us? Since yeah, he's one of the greatest men from your original country. You know,
Yes.
Gandhi
Yeah.
as one of the great men of the 20th century, no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of my role models too.
Hmm.
So, right. So if we could change ourselves, the tendencies in the world would also change. As a man changes his own nature, so does the attitude of the world change towards him. We need not wait to see what others do.
Yeah, so that's a fuller quote, and this is a greatly simplified version of it. We must become the change we want to see in the world. He's a bit more subtle. He's saying if we change ourselves, the tendencies in the world would also change. Tendencies.
Mm.
Right? So in other words, things start to move in a different way. It doesn't mean overnight suddenly the world changes, but dramatically. But these what Carl Jung called synchronicities start to happen. As a person changes their own nature, so does the attitude of the world change towards them. So in other words, it's all energy. As you broadcast a different frequency of energy, so that's what you tend to get back.
Mm.
Right? This is the true law of attraction. And we need not wait. I like the last sentence. We need not wait to see what others do.
Mm.
You can make a change yourself, and no one is stopping you from doing that.
Yeah.
You don't have to wait for the world to change, to get permission from someone, for the stars to align, whatever. You can make a change right now, today, and that starts to change things. Maybe in a small way, subtle way. So just changing a habit. Say, okay, so uh, instead of doing this, I'm going to do this. Instead of going to bed late, I'll go to bed early, for instance. Or
Mm.
instead of zoning out on social media, I'm going to read for half an hour and then get an early night. These are changes. These are choices we're making,
Mm.
and they have an energetic impact. And then that broadcasts a different frequency into the world, and you tend to get back whatever you broadcast out. That's how the law of attraction really works.
Yeah.
So he's really just saying that in his own way, restatement, if you like, of the law of attraction. You change yourself, then the world changes and circumstances change.
Yeah. And that's real agency, isn't it? And being an agent of change, to do that.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. And he's saying if we want a more
Mm.
peaceful world, we must become more peaceful ourselves. I mean,
Yeah.
it should be absolute common sense, but not always. There's the joke about the angry pacifist.
Mm.
Is really angry about the state of the world and world affairs and how the leaders are leading us into war, and they're really very angry about it, and
Mm.
it's crazy. Well, how can you spread peace if you're angry yourself?
Mm.
Your energy is an angry energy, so you're going to create more of that.
Yeah.
If we want a happier world, we need to be happy ourselves. If we want a more loving world, we must become more loving towards others. Common sense, really. Common sense. It should be common sense.
Mm.
All these great teachers just really tell us common sense, what should be common sense, but it's not. And so they call radical or transformational or different or whatever, because what they're saying is just true. But I guess in a world of illusion, the truth is radical,
Mm.
the simple truth. That's been said over and over. I mean, this has been said many, many times by different teachers. He's just another one saying it in his own way. But yeah, this is the real law of attraction, just restated actually. Um, so Copenhagen, and if we look at the quantum mechanics side of this interpretation of this, the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics says something really interesting. Kim, if you can read that.
There is no reality in the absence of observation. So observation creates reality.
Yeah, that's a summation of the Copenhagen interpretation, which is pretty mind blowing. It's why quantum physics maybe hasn't become mainstream yet, because it's saying that reality is not what you think it is. In fact, reality doesn't exist as any kind of independent, observable phenomena. It's totally bound up with the observer, and they've done various experiments that show that. The observer changes the outcome of the experiment, and they've done that repeatedly in many different labs around the world, hundreds, thousands of times. And the same effect happens when you observe it. When you're not observing an electron going through a screen, two slits, the famous double slits experiment, then you get two bands. The electrons behave as particles, as waves. But as soon as you observe and you put a counter on one of the slits, then they go through one or the other, and they become particles, depending on what the observer in the experiment is wanting. And it gets even freakier in that one electron can interfere with itself. One electron beam should go through either slit or another, but actually it ends up going through both and becomes a wave interference pattern when you don't look. When you look, it collapses into a particle and it goes through one or the other. I mean, this is like mind bending for physicists. They were like, "What is going on here? This is not what we expected at all."
Mm.
It's called wave particle duality. So it's a wave when you're not looking, and it's a particle when you look. So the observer is key to collapsing the wave function. Another interpretation, the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, says something equally interesting. It's saying that it's not like the wave function collapses, it's just that you've got many different possibilities happening all at the same time. And when you choose, you actualize one of those possibilities, and that becomes your experience. But all of those are simultaneously possibilities. They're going on. So you make a choice, you're now in that world, in that version of reality, let's say. But the others are still there just as potential. You're not experiencing them, but they're still there. So there's potentially infinite numbers of possibilities depending on what you choose. And what you choose then gives you that experience, actualizes that possibility into actuality. It's another way of looking at it. Whichever way you look at it, it's very clear that the observer and the choice the observer makes is critical to reality, which is kind of what the Course is saying to us. Choice, right? Forgiveness is a choice. That choice determines your reality. That determines the outcome of everything in this world. And that's why I emphasize that forgiveness always involves a choice. Yes, there's an awareness, but there's a choice to let go of one thought system and therefore accept another in any situation. And that choice then actualizes a different reality, a different version of reality. Many worlds, if you take the many worlds interpretation, or your choice collapses reality into the one version. which you're now experiencing. Either way, it's the same effect. Whichever interpretation you take of quantum mechanics, it ends up being the same same thing. Your choice is powerful, and your choice is going to determine your reality. That's what this quantum mechanics really says. So it's saying exactly what Gandhi said. He's a philosopher, spiritual teacher. Quantum mechanics is supposedly science, but they come to the same conclusion, which is pretty fascinating. See how, all of these streams of knowledge come to the same point, to the same understanding ultimately. Okay, any questions about that? Make sense? So,
Sorry, the parallel universe, I mean, is that the so-called endless number of possibilities? Is that like what people might refer to as parallel universes in a way?
Yeah, I guess you could call it in a different language. It's technically called the many worlds theory or interpretation of quantum mechanics, which was proposed by some other scientists as an alternative to the Copenhagen interpretation. But it's interesting because these are interpretations. They're not facts. They are deliberately called interpretations. So when scientists go, well, I just like science because it's fact. Nothing about fact here. This is all how you interpret the results. So you're going into the domain of philosophy. How are you interpreting this? Perception, not fact. Yeah, it's a fact you get certain observable outcomes from the experiments. How you interpret them is up to you, which again indicates that this is perceptual, not factual. Before quantum mechanics came along, science was like, no, everything's factual, it's observable. You can be very, very, very clear. That's fact, and that's a lie. Now we're in the domain of perception, interpretation, i.e., it all becomes philosophical. It's all about your thought system. How do you interpret it? Well, that depends on your perspective, and so perception comes into it, which is a demonstration of exactly what these laws are saying. Right? It's the observer that creates the reality. Perception creates the reality. We might say there you could substitute perception for observation. Perception creates reality. That would be equally valid. Because when you observe, you are perceiving from a certain perspective, whether you like it or not. A perception is going on. As soon as you have subject-object perception, I, subject, perceive something outside of me, object, there is an observation and there's a perception of that observation. How are you processing what you are seeing or perceiving? That depends on how you're thinking. So perception creates your reality. One person sees the same thing and they perceive it very differently from another person who sees exactly the same thing. Who's right? And we've all done those perception experiments where you can see one thing and then you can see another. In fact, I'll show you. Got one of them in the course manual. So just demonstrate that the different perspectives. That box, you can see that in two different ways, right? The one on the left, as well as the one on the right. The one on the right is impossible. So leave that one. Just look at the one on the left. You see it in two different ways, You can see it top down, or you can see it coming out of the page towards you. It's like you're looking down on it, slightly from the left of it, or it's coming out at you. And you see it sort of going this way with the front, that being the front, as like a squash court, I would call that, because I was a squash player. So top down versus flat, but it's the same thing you're looking at. So which is correct? It's top down when you see it top down, and then when you see it otherwise, when you see it going left, then it becomes that. It can't be both at the same time. So that obeys the laws of quantum superposition. Can't be both in both states at the same time. It collapses into one or the other when you look at it, and you give it the reality that it has. Fascinating. So when we understand that, we understand how important we are to the world around us. We're not insignificant beings, we in fact are creating the world around us. If we want to change the world around us, all we need to do is change our perception of it. Bingo. How simple is that? I don't have to go and do anything terribly extraordinary. I just have to change my perception, and the world changes instantly. Again, this is a secret that hasn't been widely shared because it's so powerful. Because in a moment, you can change your perception and your reality changes in an instant. One of those moments is called an epiphany, a moment of insight or satori in the East, revelation, spiritual awakening. There's many terms for it, but it's a sudden shift in perception. And you just go, oh, I get it. Like I just see it differently. And then in that moment, your world changes. And everything after that changes. And people who've had such an epiphany, life-changing moment, their life changes forever. They never go back. They change radically, completely. Think of Byron Katie, probably familiar with her story. Eckhart Tolle. They have a moment. That moment changes their entire life. They never go back to their old self and their old perception, their old way of perceiving the world. And everything changes from that moment onwards. Their thoughts, their words, their actions, their energy changes entirely, and what they do in the world changes from one shift in their perception. Well, that's how powerful it is. Because you're literally reorganizing the internal structure that is you. When you shift your perception, you change yourself. Change your perception, you change yourself. And because of this law of projection making perception, you're also going to change the world around you. So, Elaine, if you can read that kindly.
Yeah.
Projection makes perception.
Projection makes perception. The world you see is what you gave it, nothing more than that. But though it is no more than that, it is not less. Therefore, to you it is important. It is the witness to your state of mind, the outside picture of an inward condition. As man thinketh, so does he perceive. Therefore, seek not to change the world, but choose to change the mind about the world.
Change your mind about the world. That's one of the most powerful lines from the whole course. Seek not to change the world, but choose to change your mind about the world. So most people say, well, the world needs to change. I need to do various things. Other people need to change in order to change my state. And so it's difficult because I don't have the power to change all that. A lot of personal growth says, well, you can go and you can put a lot of effort into it, and you can make money and you can change your life. But it's so much simpler to just change your mind. Once you change your mind, you change your energy, and you start creating different things in the world. So it's a much easier, more natural way of doing it. The other way is outside in, which is inevitably going to fail you because it's not ultimately true. Your state of mind is actually independent of the world. If you make it dependent on worldly outcomes, you enslave yourself to the world. You're saying, I'm a victim of the world. It's not a good thing to do. So there's the course's take on it, which aligns wonderfully with quantum physics and what Gandhi is saying, and you start to see, but there's really just one truth here. It's being taught by all these different teachers through the ages. It's all the same thing. So how does this translate then into biology, into our minds, into our bodies? Well, new thoughts about the world create new beliefs and new emotions that form new neural pathways in your brain, which then become your new identity. So you're now thinking differently, and I'll probably add this in next time. Your heart starts to become more coherent. So you have an electromagnetic field in your heart, which is very powerful, which now changes, and that changes your entire body. That's the most powerful energy field in your body. It's, I think, 60 times more powerful than the brain's electromagnetic fields. That's why they say, do you feel it in your heart? your heart's desire, all these things, because it's coming from that really, really powerful energy center that sits here. And then your thoughts start to become coherent to that. So that entrains your thinking and your new identity, which affects your body's biochemistry, the electromagnetics of it, and inspires or induces you to continue to change your beliefs, thoughts, emotions, perceptions, decisions, and actions in a way that aligns with the new belief. So this is just how biology works, how science works, and that creates and continually reinforces a new reality for yourself, which is why our beliefs are powerful and need to be chosen with conscious awareness of ultimate truth rather than a false desire for separate individual identity. It's quite well illustrated in this diagram. So you've probably all seen this before, but let's look at it again. This is from the Instrument for Peace process and worksheet, which I did attach to the email. So you have it in case you hadn't stored it. Really powerful process, which you can work through. And it takes you through these layers, through the perceptual layer, the emotional layer, the thought layer, the belief layer, into the desire or prayer of the heart to really uncover what's going on. Okay, so what is at the foundation then of my problem? If I've got a problem, what is at the core of it? And it's always a desire to be a separate self. That's what the Course is saying. And the solution lies in making a different choice at that level, saying, no, I'm going to let go of that self-concept, and I'm going to embrace being oneself. And that oneness then changes one's belief and thought and emotion and perception, and it ripples up into the perceptual level where it starts to create manifest change. There's also projection going on. Projection makes perception on a subtle level, energetic level. That belief projects into the universe and starts creating a reality which we then perceive from the same thought system. It's ingenious, really. So it's the same thing coming from you, but it appears now to be outside of you. What's called projection, projected outside of the mind. And now you perceive it, but you perceive it from the same thought system that projected it. That sounds like a trap. It's because it is. You get trapped in it. You project it on one level, it seems to be outside of you, and then you perceive it, and you think that your perception is independent of your projection, but it's not. It's been created by the same thought system. And that's what we've got to get to the bottom of. And that's where the change, the real change happens. That's where the miracle happens. When we really change our mind at that level, then it changes belief, thought, emotion, and perception. And it's also changing projection as well. And then synchronicities, miracles start to happen. You go, oh, wow, things are changing. And you notice those changes because it's changing on a perceptual level. It's also changing on a projector level. And synchronicity could be defined as when your new identity aligns in both projection and perception. You get it? And they sync. And you go, oh, something just happened, and I perceive it correctly, and it aligns, and I go, oh wow, that's really interesting. I noticed that there's a change here, and it's teaching me something. It's telling me that something internally that I thought was internal has actually had a manifest effect, and so this is actually how reality works. My internal state affects my my seeming external reality. And that's what the synchronicity or the miracle is. Okay, so it's profound stuff. This is a complete theory of reality, of science, of psychology, of mind, which all integrates. Whichever discipline you look at it through, you can look at it from a psychological perspective, you can look at it from a quantum physical perspective, you can look at it from a spiritual perspective. You start seeing this all aligns, right? They're not disagreeing, they're just different perspectives on the same truth. And then you start understanding that there's really only one truth. Okay, so yeah, if you want to work through that worksheet, I've given it to you. You can either do it on your own, or if you do a one-on-one with me, it's quite. We just did one with Archie. It was good, wasn't it, Archie?
It
Really,
was, yeah, it was amazing. Yeah,
it's quite helpful just to be walked through it, because on our own it's often difficult to uncover these layers. You know, we have huge resistance to going there. emotions, the ego's emotion doesn't want us to go there. The thought system, the core belief of who you believe you are is very, 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 very stubborn, doesn't want to be revealed. But you have to go through these layers to reveal it. And that's exactly what the process does. Changing your mind at the fundamental level of desire is what Yeshua calls a miracle. So when you say, no, I don't want to be separate anymore in this situation, I just want to be one, whole, integrated, unified. I'm not a separate entity anymore, who's a victim of the world. My true prayer is just to be one. That changes everything. Change your mind, you change your heart, you change your energy frequency. Your belief must change. Your thoughts change. Your emotions change. Your perceptions change. So it's a radical, it's what we call transformation, inside out, when we change here. And that's what Yeshua calls a miracle in the Course in Miracles, dedicated to facilitating that kind of change at the core level. And then that might show up in the world as, oh, something changes outside of me. There's two aspects. There's the internal correction, and then there's the external reflection of that correction, which the Course also calls a miracle. That's just on the exterior. That's just on the exterior level. So get an integral model. Let's look at that quickly. The miracle is reflected in the interior subjective, but that on that same level. Let's say you've raised your mind, you've let go of some ego, changed your mind, you've raised your frequency up to that level. Let's say that then has a corresponding state in the objective and the interobjective. So you then get something showing up in your perception that goes, oh, there we go. There's the corresponding frequency, if you like, manifested in the external world, and you can see it. It becomes tangible, objective, and becomes part of so-called material reality. But you have no doubt when that happens that it is connected. But somehow it's connected to your inner state. But these are not disconnected. So you start to literally connect the dots and see that this really is one integrated thought system. Hence, it's called the integral model. And these are just different perspectives on the same thing. The internal shift, yes, you have thoughts and emotions and a state of mind around that. The objective is the exterior reflection of that. The same thing now reflected energetically in an objective way that you can perceive with your physical senses. And then it has an impact interobjectively. That changes society in some way. And if you're really powerful and you go to a very high frequency, that can change the entire world. All of these systems can be reorganized, as we've seen. Someone like Yeshua did that. It completely, fundamentally changed all the systems in society. Unusual, but it's possible when your frequency is high enough. And change the culture, which is shared values, meanings, language, and so on, in society as well. So that's just another perspective on the same shift, the same change. So once we understand this, we then start to live the truth that it's all connected, as the Buddhists tell us, Eastern teachings. So it's all connected. It's all really one mind. Yeah, it is. It's just different aspects of it. You're perceiving it differently in the 4 different quadrants, but it's all connected on the same level, the same contour line of energy, if you like. Okay, does that make sense? Yeah, so I've just gone into that. It was actually here already. So I forgot about that. So you see the different aspects of it. You can get miraculous effects on the level of form, of behavior, of outcomes, because our beliefs create our perceptions or experience of reality in this world. So the subjective experience then creates a seemingly objective reality. In other words, as quantum mechanics says, there is no reality in the absence of observation. This does not exist independent of the subjective self that is observing it. If there's no subject here, then the whole thing collapses. This is consciousness itself. Without this, the entire thing collapses, and therein lies the key to your freedom. You collapse this, and there's no longer a separate self there to perceive. That collapses the whole system. You see the way out. So quantum mechanics is giving us the way out. Collapse the idea that you're a separate self, and then you collapse the entire system. There then is no objective reality outside of you. And that self collapses into the one self, the oneness of mind, of being, which is no longer separate. And then you go beyond the model because there's no need for a model anymore. There's no need for levels. You simply are. You are that, that one mind or awareness. So whichever way you look at it, psychological, scientific, spiritual, it points to the same thing. Ultimately, you're going to collapse that separate self. So there's no more separate self to perceive anything outside of itself, and then the whole system collapses. You pull the plug on the whole matrix, and this whole thing collapses into one awareness, which underlies it. Because all of this is illusion, right? This is just a map of an illusion, but it can be a helpful map while you're trying to navigate your way in the illusion, find your way out of the illusion. Does that make sense? So, but remember, the map is not the territory. So the map is just a map that helps you to navigate the actual territory, which is happening in your life. The experiences you have are the actual territory. And what might seem simple in the map isn't so simple, in practicality in your life. I'll give you a good example, actually. So when I was at school, we were on some orienteering course. I went on a weekend away, and one of the challenges they gave us was to navigate from one place to another. They gave us a map and a compass and said, right, you got to get there in 2 hours. And so me and my, direct thinking wisdom go, oh, well, let's just go straight there. But there's all these contour lines. I didn't really understand what contour lines were. So the map seems, we'll just go the direct route. But actually, when you're in the actuality of it, the contour lines meant that you've got to now go down into a donga. And there's like bush, and you got to hack your way through the bush. And then you got to go up again. So it was a very hard way because I hadn't understood the map properly. I hadn't understood how to read a map. So that created much more difficulty in the seeming reality of the experience. So there's an example, right? So the map clearly wasn't the territory. If I'd known how to read a map better, it could have been a much smoother experience because I would have just stuck to the contour lines. I'm going, oh, okay, so that means we're just going to stay on the same contour line. Actually, we ended up getting there when everyone else did, but it was a much harder route because we had to hack our way through bush and anyway. So there's a good example of it. And if you want to dive more into this and how this relates to human biology and the body-mind system, there's a guy called Bruce Lipton who gives a really good talk on it called The Biology of Belief. Fascinating stuff where he goes into this, how belief then has a measurable effect on the body and how that translates into our body, which then, if the body is an electromagnetic broadcasting device, that then changes reality, right? Because the body then is the mechanism of the mind translating itself into energy, which then gets broadcast out, and now it has an observable effect. So going back here, your inner state, your beliefs, then get projected out through the mechanism of the body, and it gets broadcast out into the objective and interobjective, and that creates a different reality for you. So that's how the translation happens. And this is science. Science shows this. That absolutely beliefs do affect our biology, and they do affect our energy profoundly. And if you have the right kind of beliefs, then it's positive, and if they're wrong, then it can be extremely negative, and that's where sickness and disease and illness and so on arise. So, and all of this is called New Age, but this is very old. This knowledge has been around for thousands of years. It's embedded in all the ancient spiritualities, in Ayurvedic medicine, Chinese medicine. It's all there. They understood all this. It's just in our Western system, it's largely been denied. And what we've tried to do in Western thought is we've tried to deny the interior quadrants. And we said the subjective and the intersubjective don't really exist. It's all woo-woo. And really, this is reality. It's called the scientific materialist paradigm. Reality only exists in the objective, what can be observed and measured and touched with the senses, then is reality, and anything else is not really reality. It's unreal. And if you want to change these inner states, because they do acknowledge that people have them, but if you want to change them, the way you do it is by changing the biochemistry of the brain and the body with drugs. And so that's how it works, right? Instead of changing it internally, they say, no, you have to change the biochemistry to get the change. And so you see where all these systems, I mean, now we're talking about, the whole medical system and $1 trillion industry and the pharmaceutical industry comes from a paradigm. You see that. It comes from a scientific materialist worldview that says change this and then you change that. If they didn't believe that, they would say that's nonsense. Change this and then you change that. This is causative. This is cause and this is effect. Scientific materialist paradigm says, no, this is cause and this is effect. You see? And never the twain shall meet, because it's going to be one or the other. Truth is, they interact. You change this, you are going to change your body, and then that is going to have a feedback mechanism back into there. But the real causation is here. You can change your mind and profoundly shift your body. Profoundly. That's been shown many, many times throughout the course of human history. People having spiritual experiences, epiphanies, awakenings, spontaneous healings. There are 70 odd documented miraculous healings at Lourdes in France. They can't explain it because there's been a profound inner shift, and then that just changes the body, and it happens instantly, like bang, done, because the energy shifted. And the energy realigns, and then suddenly that condition that was there an hour before when they were clinically examined just is gone once they've been in the water. And the water just is a catalyst for a profound shift in their mental, emotional state. Not everyone has that profound shift, so they don't always get the healing, but sometimes they do. It brings them into a heightened state. So I hope all of this is helpful, and these models are helpful in helping you to understand how it's all interconnected. And we're really dealing with one simple truth, whichever lens and perspective you look at it from. Psychological, scientific, spiritual. If you take a physical, energetic, component to it, it's just different perspectives on the same truth. And once you understand that truth, life becomes very simple. So, okay, I get it. I understand how it's all interconnected. If you don't understand how it all works and how it's interconnected, by definition, you're going to be a bit confused. You're not going to know how to really operate the system because you don't understand how it works. Unfortunately, society through the ages has tried to keep people deliberately confused about how it all works. Because if you really understand it and you switch on, you're going to be able to operate the system very efficiently, and you're going to get some fairly extraordinary, miraculous results, which then potentially challenges powers that be that want to stay in control. That's how it works. Someone who's really activated this, gone to a very high frequency, can change the objective and the interobjective reality in which they work. You remember in the Matrix movie, the prophecy was, someone would come back, that the original avatar could change the Matrix at will because he was so powerful, because his thought, his belief was so powerful. He'd escaped the Matrix in his mind, so he could change it. So that's what happens. It can change government systems. There's no power on earth that can really stand against that. And so, the ego, being what it is, tries to hide it and obscure it and make sure that individuals don't learn this and they don't actualize it. Because if they do, it is going to change the world. As to go back to our quote, as Gandhi said, you change yourself, you change the world. But it's happening on every level. Hopefully, I've given you a perspective on how profound that change is, and it's happening on every level imaginable when you really change your mind, which is why Yeshua said, "Seek not to change the world, but choose to change your mind about the world." Because when you really change your mind, you change that, and you change that. You take yourself to a different frequency of energy, and everything then must change. The objective and the interobjective reality which you seem to exist in, which is a projection of this, must change as well. Okay. Any questions on all that? All clear? Simple? Got it? It is actually quite simple, but our task is to learn to operate the system skillfully. In Buddhist practice, they call it skillful living. To be able to operate it skillfully, consistently, is mastery. And that's going to take practice. It doesn't just happen. When you're starting to learn anything new, you're not that skillful at it. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to get it wrong. So, but the more you practice, the better you get at it. So life becomes your spiritual practice of skillfully operating this new operating system and learning in the process who you really are, which ultimately means you don't need to come back and do it all over again and have to figure out all this stuff again, because you figured it out and you've transcended the whole matrix. All models collapse and you go back to oneness. That, the ground of being we talked about, the base state, which really is underlies all this. Beyond all the levels, beyond the quadrants, the lines, the levels, the states, the types, those are the 5 different aspects of integral theory. There is just one awareness, the ground of being. That would in this diagram be the kind of greenish background. That's just the base state. If you remove all of the white, all of the writing, all of the lines, what's left? Just that base awareness onto which it's all been superimposed. That's what we're looking for. That's the ground of being. That's where we go. Okay, so all the spiritual practices are just directed to helping you to systematically and progressively raise yourself up these levels. Change your mind, change your perception, start changing your reality, start experiencing miracles, going in a positive spiral. You're looping around, you're going forever expanding, right? It becomes like a spiral. In fact, there is a developmental psychological model called spiral dynamics, which operates in this intersubjective quadrant, which talks exactly about the spiral. And you go up into the higher levels of meaning. This is where we enlighten, not just as individuals, but as a society, integral, holistic, and even beyond that, mystic states have been mapped, but they're not common. But it's a spiral, ever increasing, ever expanding of your. This is what people mean when they say your consciousness is expanding. You're going to a different energetic level. That's what it really means. And ultimately, you transcend all the limits. You transcend the model. There are no more lines or quadrants or anything. Once you go beyond that, so this is the highest reach of human potential, that far outer line. Once you go beyond that, then the human condition collapses and you go back into base awareness, and you go beyond all models. And that's a state that people like Yeshua reached. Their last lifetime, they were there, and then they just let it, let the body go, transcended completely, and went back to oneness. Except that they're not fully in oneness as long as everyone else still believes in a separate self. So they still have to maintain some awareness of separation in order to help us. So their full awakening only comes when every single mind has awoken and the entire matrix has collapsed, which is why they continue to work and help others to climb the ladder. This is a ladder, essentially, a ladder out of hell back to heaven, stairway to heaven. That's what this is. But it's made up of energetic levels. So you've got to climb up and eventually transcend. And you do that through spiritual practice. good spiritual practices raise your level, and they are then a stepping stone or a rung in the ladder that help you climb higher. And if you're doing that systematically and progressively, you're going to do those things regularly in your as part of your daily routine, so that you're systematically and progressively climbing the ladder. It's not accidental. It's intentional. You've set the intention and you're going to do it consistently, systematically, progressively, and you're going to raise your frequency over time in a very measured way. Often, you don't necessarily have a huge leap. You might, but it's more like, okay, so a little micro shift, little shift. But after a year of that, you're now at a different level. I think it's a better way than waiting for some epiphany. If you look at the way, say, Eckhart Tolle and Byron Katie woke up, it was very painful. They went really, really low. It was a very low energetic state, so low that they're suicidal. Byron Katie didn't even feel like she had enough self-worth to sleep on a bed. She was sleeping on the floor because she didn't feel worthy of a bed. I mean, that's how low the self-concept can go. It's very, very small, contracted. Her self-concept would have been here, and then she has an awakening experience, and in a matter of minutes, she goes from here all the way up here. And obviously that's going to create a profound inner shift. She's going to go like, whoa, this is like radically different. I can feel the difference because of the huge contrast. If the contrast is only one level or half a level, it's not that great. But if you do it over time, you're going to get the same shift. It's just not going to be, as dramatically noticeable. It's going to be more like gradual, which is typically what most people do. They're not going to get those massive shifts, but slowly, slowly, slowly. So that's what I call the way of mastery, as opposed to the way of the cross, which is kind of waiting for some, massive suffering to awaken you. Well, good luck with that one, because you might never awaken. There are people who just suffer and suffer and suffer. The Byron Katies and Eckhart Tolles of the world are quite exceptional. I mean, it doesn't happen to everyone, but they just like suddenly got it. Not everyone does that. Okay. So any thoughts, comments, or questions? There's quite a lot in this email, but hopefully it's helping you to connect the dots and see it from different perspectives and make sense of it all, which is why I try and combine these things in interesting ways, right? So I combine them all and you start to see how it all combines, and then you look at it another way in another lesson, and suddenly it all starts to gel, and you start to go, yeah, I see it's really just it's one truth that's being communicated here, and all the models and all the different perspectives are telling me the same thing. All right, so that brings us to our lesson. So let's just read the introduction, I think. So short introduction, this is how to practice it. And then we'll go into practice. These reviews are actually really, really good. I don't know if you've been reviewing them, but they definitely give you a different perspective on the original lesson. He reframes it. It's not just the same lesson regurgitated. He writes, his commentary is brilliant on the original lesson. Just to like, okay, I can see this a little bit differently. And you start to see how they all tie together. That's the advantage of the review. See how, because you've got 5 in a row, you see how all those ideas are really part of one thought system. Okay, so beginning with today, we have a series of review periods. Archie, would you like to read that?
Mm-hmm.
Paragraph 1, kindly, for us.
Yeah. Beginning with today, we will have a series of review periods. Each of them will cover 5 of the ideas already presented, starting with the first and ending with the 5th, or with the 50th. There will be a few short comments after each of the ideas, which you should consider in your review. In the practice periods, the exercises should be done as follows.
All right. Elaine or Kim, if you can read number 2.
Okay. Begin the day by reading the 5 ideas with comments included. Thereafter, it is not necessary to follow any particular order considering them, though each should be practiced at least once. Devote 2 minutes or more to each practice period, thinking about the idea and the related comments after reading them over. Do this as often as possible during the day. If any one of the 5 ideas appeals to you more than the others, concentrate on that one. At the end of the day, however, be sure to review all of them once more.
No, it's just saying, just pick an idea and just focus on that for a fairly short time, 2 minutes. Think about the main idea. You can read the comments, but you don't have to. It's really just about holding that idea in mind. And the more you do that, this is called contemplation. The Christian tradition, they had a something called the Lectio Divina. I sent it out actually as a slide, which maybe I'll bring up, because let's just stop the share quickly. It might be useful to bring that slide up. It was in yesterday's one, I think.
And Jonathan, where are these 5 ideas from? Are they written in the course book, or are they been in? Yeah.
They are the original lessons.
Yeah.
Which are then just being reviewed.
Okay.
So you're just reviewing, what we covered in the Art of Letting Go course. They were all there, and you're just reviewing them 5 at a time.
Yeah.
Which then helps you to sort of connect the dots again and go, okay, so that's.
So they're 5 sequential lessons, are they, that are reviewed?
Yeah, it does. It does. 5 at a time.
Yeah.
Where is that? I think I might have. Just trying to find it. Day 15, maybe. It's just a particular slide that I wanted to have a look at, which I'm now not able
Is
to
this
find.
the first batch of 5, or is there, or?
No, we're on day 3 of the review, so this is the third.
Oh, yeah.
This is the third review lesson. So we're on lessons 11 through to 15.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So what are we? 17. I'll leave out day 15. Let's just see if I can find this slide. Otherwise, it'll be in Telegram, I think. Okay, so that's not happening. Let's find it in Telegram. No, it's here. It's this is something called a Lectio Divina, which is comes out of the Christian tradition, and it's about contemplating, reflecting on Scripture. So you would go in and you'd reflect on Scripture, and there's a 4-stage process to that. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen. There we go. Found it eventually. This is in the Christian tradition where you would you would read a passage from the Bible typically, but you could take any scripture. It could be one of the not the official Bible, it could be one of the Nag Hammadi Gospels, like the Gospel of Thomas or the Gospel of Philip, for instance. Select and read a brief passage slowly and reflectively, and let it sink in. Right, so then the second stage, meditatio, you're not it's not the Eastern sense of meditation where you're trying to just still and quiet the mind. It's more about a reflection, right? Reflectio might be a better term. Lectio, you're reflecting on this. So you read it and you kind of reflect and you think about it and you let it kind of sink in and you mull over it, and maybe some other ideas come in to your mind. You allow the biblical passage to interact with your thoughts, desires, and hopes, and you reflect on how it applies to your life. And this is very much what we're being asked to do with the course, is take these ideas and just spend some time with them and reflect on them. Okay, so how does that actually apply? What does that mean to me? And that takes a little bit of time. So saying, we will take 2 minutes out of your day, do that several times a day, as well as in the morning and the evening, and just do this reflection, because it makes a difference in your thought system ultimately if you do that. So you allow the passage to touch you at the deepest of levels. So you start feeling it. Deepest of levels is energetic, emotional. You start feeling it. And so, we can have a profound awakening, shifting, emotional experience just from words, just from reading a passage. I'll give you an example in history. So Martin Luther, the famous monk who really upset the apple cart and challenged the entire Catholic Church and kicked off the Reformation, did exactly this process for one night over a passage in the Bible, on not by works but by grace we're saved. It's a very, very simple passage or line. It's quite a famous one. He just reflected on that, and obviously went into a deep reflection, contemplation, meditation on it. One night, I don't think he slept, and in the morning came out of it and had transformed. There was something that had shifted in his understanding of Christianity, and from that understanding, he then went, this current system is wrong. It's got it all upside down and backwards, and I need to do something about it. I need to challenge it. So from exactly this process came one of the most profound transformations, or reformation as it was called, in Western history, in human history. The Reformation just completely changed Europe, and therefore the world, because Europe was pretty dominant at that point in world affairs. Changed the world and set us on a path of then that was the ground for the Renaissance to come, and then the Renaissance led to the Industrial Revolution, and here we are 500 years later with the effects of that. All of this technology, these ideas, it all is a process that has come from, you could track it back to that epiphany that he had 500 odd years ago in reflection. Amazing, really. Would we be here if he hadn't had that epiphany? Interesting question. We don't know. I suspect something would have changed anyway. Someone else would have done it, but it needed someone to do it, and he was the person. He was obviously, chosen, if you like, by the Holy Spirit. There was a receptivity in his mind and his heart to the message, landed, and then he was actually willing to do something about it. And so he was the world's first best-selling author. He lectured and he wrote, and at one point, a quarter of all publications in the world, and there weren't many at that point, were Martin Luther's works. So he was literally the world's best-selling author to start with. He was the original, which then started changing people's thinking, and seriously challenged the church's dominance, and in fact broke its dominance. Eventually, people were like, okay, we don't have to listen to the church anymore, and they broke away and did their own thing, and that was part of the Protestant movement, the Reformation, etc. Okay, but anyway, that's a little history lesson. So the third bit, maybe someone else read this, the oratio response. So Elaine, if you want to read that bit, number 3.
I thought, did we not read number 2? We've read number 2, have I? I missed that.
Yeah, I've read number 2, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, number 3, yeah.
Yeah. So, oratorio response. Here you set aside your thinking, open your heart to God, so that your heart, inspired by your reflections, can respond to the Bible passage in the form of an intuitive conversation with God.
So just substitute Bible for the course. That's our Bible, essentially, our text. You start interacting with us in this way, and it starts to take you deeper into your mind, into this fundamental awareness we call God, where you start to have insights, you start to have conversation, ideas, and you're starting to change your mind, literally, about your mind. You're starting to change your whole thought system in this way. So you're actually interacting and engaging. There's no one else present, but you're engaging with the material, you're thinking about it, you're opening your heart and your mind to reflections and ideas. And that this is a form of meditation. So the Course draws on this a lot. He's saying use the words, use the ideas, reflect on them, and let it take you into a deeper state of mind, which is then an altered state or a meditative state, but using the ideas and the words. This slide is just saying, but this is actually quite an ancient tradition. This is, goes back many centuries. Christian, particularly mystics, monks, this was their primary form of prayer and spiritual practice. They would do this a lot in the quiet hours. They'd retire in the early morning, late evening, and they'd spend time if in a monastery, they'd spend time alone, just studying the Bible, just reading it and reflecting on it. So we're doing the same thing. We're just doing it with a different text, which is much more profound than the Bible. It strips away a lot of the dogma and a lot of discrepancies, a lot of contradictions in the Bible, because it was written over so many hundred years by different people. It says, right, now you've got one cohesive thought system, and you're just going to get very different perspectives on this one thought system over and over again in lessons, in text, and you can really reflect on it and allow this to do its work and change your mind internally, which is what it's about. Okay, and then number 4, Kim, if you can read that, contemplatio.
Contemplatio, rest. Here you let go of all your words and simply rest in God. This final stage is a wordless contemplation of God, in which you joyfully rest in His presence.
Yeah, so this kind of surrender, you just let go of the words, you let go of the practice. The course says at one point, just let go of the course, let go of the world, and come with holy empty hands unto your God. That's how he phrases it. It's a complete surrender, it's just a letting go and just going into that presence, that awareness that is God, that is this fundamental awareness. And the words have helped you to go there, right? So it's a pathway to get into that state. So important to finish off with that, because then that becomes your true prayer. True prayer is communion with God. It's actually feeling that presence, feeling that awareness. So it takes you into that altered state, that higher state of awareness, union with God, where you connect, you are that awareness, there's no separation anymore. And that's the divine union, the mystical union of the Father and the Son, which in the Christian tradition is called the bridal chamber. It's like the union of the separate self with the divine. In this divine union, they become one again. So it's got nothing to do with sexuality, but it's taking that sexual metaphor and saying, yeah, but actually the true union is the union of your mind with its source, which can happen in this way. Meditation, in the Eastern sense, is another pathway. Breath work, they're all pathways into the same wordless state of awareness, which we call God. Okay. And then this is quite interesting in The Purpose-Driven Life. So this is a book by a guy called Rick Warren. He's a very well-known pastor, and he comments on it in his book. So Archie, it's your turn. You can read that.
Sorry, Jono. I'm not sure if I particularly see that much difference between 3 and 4. Like when you apply it.
Yeah. So I think this one you're still thinking. You kind of there's some kind of thought process going on. So you're responding to the passage. You get thoughts. You get feelings. Maybe it's more feeling into it. There's still some kind of interaction going on. And then, this would be okay, I'm just letting go, and I'm just resting. We are resting, I rest in God, as of course says lesson 109. But in practice, it might start this way, and then you just kind of merge into this state. They're not necessarily like, oh, now I'm in this state and now I'm in this state. It's like it's a process. So it's an experience. I wouldn't get too hung up on the stages. They're just kind of guides. You're going to go, okay, so this is kind of a structure you can try and follow. But once you go into it, what I find is it sort of has its own. It takes you. You might say the Holy Spirit takes you and it guides you, and you interact with something, and you can go into deep reflection for 5 or 10 minutes, and you can have all of this conversation, and then finally you can find a sense of peace, and in that conversation, maybe you've resolved some issues that you had. It becomes clearer, and it helps you to solve some problems. So does that kind of address your question?
Yeah.
I think just go and do it for yourself. And that's really what the course gives you, ample material to do this and practice with. That's what the practice is. And just do it yourself, and then you find your own way into God, right? And the material leads you into that wordless state where you feel deeply connected and you're just in this awareness. Okay, and so then just the comment that Rick Warren made is quite interesting. No other habit can do more to transform your life and make you more like Jesus than daily reflection on Scripture. So, well, if you look up all the times God speaks about meditation in the Bible, you'll be amazed at the benefits His promised to those who take the time to reflect on His word throughout the day. Okay, so this is a spiritual practice that is part of the Christian tradition. And it can be very effective. And he's drawn on that. So obviously he knows what that practice is. He's drawn on that and said, okay, so this is really a large part of how the course works. I'm going to use the words to take you in to a state of mind beyond words, wordless contemplation. So very, very pertinent, relevant slide. I did send it out a couple of days ago. All right. So where are we? Let's go back here. We are in number 3, I think. Yeah, number 3. Let's just read. Whose turn is it?
Number 3.
Yeah, so I just took a little detour into the Lectio Divina, but we were reading this in preparation for the lesson. Just so you understand how to practice this.
Yeah, okay.
Do you want to read that, Kim? It's not necessary to cover the comments.
It is not necessary to cover the comments that follow each idea either literally or thoroughly in the practice periods. Try rather to emphasize the central point and think about it as part of your review of the idea to which it relates. After you have read the idea and the related comments, the exercises should be done with your eyes closed and when you are alone in a quiet place, if possible.
Yeah, so he's giving us some practical instructions on how this works. Emphasize the central point. So you don't have to read the full comments, but just that one idea, just contemplating on one idea, is very, very powerful. That idea, remember, contains the essence of the truth and the complete undoing of the ego if you accept that idea fully. Each one is perfect, whole, and complete, if you really fully embrace that idea, you'd be awakened. That's how the Course works. So each idea can take you back to the truth, back to God. All right. Then number 4, this is emphasized for practice purely your stage of learning. Archie's gone away. So Elaine, if you can read that.
This is emphasized for practice periods at your stage of learning. It will be necessary, however, that you learn to require no special settings in which to apply what you have learned. You will need your learning most situations that appear to be upsetting, rather than those that are already seem to be calm and quiet. The purpose of your learning is to enable you to bring the quiet with you and to heal distress and turmoil. This is not done by avoiding them and seeking a haven of isolation for yourself.
Yeah. So summary of that, what's he saying?
Well, with the learning stage is when it's distress and turmoil, and to find the calm in that.
Hmm.
And this is you don't avoid and seek a haven of isolation. You go through it.
Hmm. So initially, we have our time, we set aside quiet time, we do the spiritual practice, kind of, Kim, what you mentioned you're doing this weekend. We do that, and that's an important stage of learning. Ultimately, we want to be able to take this learning into situations that are difficult, potentially stressful, and go take it with us and know that we're going to be fine. That these things are not going to disturb our peace, and that we can cope actually very well with them, because you're very anchored in this fundamental frequency of peace. So think of a good example, we've used it before, that situation Yeshua faced where they brought the adulteress to him. Like a very, very emotionally charged situation. They bring this woman, they're like, okay, clearly it's a trap. We've caught her in the act of adultery. My mind boggles, but this is what they did, I guess. And what do you say? The law of Moses says she should be stoned to death. What do you say? Clearly a trap. Whatever he says, if he responds conventionally and he says, well, no, she shouldn't, then they say, well, you're denying the law of Moses. You should be stoned. And if he says, yes, the law of Moses should be enacted, then she's going to be stoned to death. So, like, either way, they win. Except that Yeshua goes, hang on, just let me pause, let me go into myself, let me ask for guidance. And he comes up with a brilliant one-liner from that state of peace and coherence, a very emotionally coherent state, let's call it. But he gave himself the time to do that by doodling in the dust. And he comes up with a great one-liner that defuses the whole thing. That he who has never sinned cast the first stone. The whole thing's just defused, everyone goes away. But to have the presence of mind to do that and take his learning into the distress and turmoil was in that instance was necessary. It was life saving for this woman and potentially for him. So the stakes were high in those days, because you could literally lose your life. Nowadays, it's just, well, you're in an argument with your spouse or your boss or the tax man, the embargo office, as the case may be, and you have to keep your presence and not lose it. Okay, number 5. Then you will yet learn that peace is part of you. Ask Archie, is she back? Archie, are you back? No, still don't know where she's gone. So Kim, if you can read that one.
You will let, sorry, my tongue is tied. You will yet learn that peace is part of you and requires only that you be there to embrace any situation in which you are. And finally, you will learn that there is no limit to where you are, so that your peace is everywhere as you are.
So this is the final stage of learning. We learn that we are everywhere, And this is the state that the great masters Yeshua achieved. Your peace is everywhere as you are, right? So maybe we'll go through these actually. Some really good slides. And just note that some of the ideas aren't given in quite the original form. So use them as they're given. You don't need to go back to the original statements and reread those. He's just saying, just move on, just read the ideas and then the comments on them as they're presented, because he's giving us a different perspective on them. I actually found the reviews really, really helpful, as helpful, maybe even more helpful than the original ideas, because he reframes it. He states it in a very, very clear, concise, simple paragraph. That's not long. Each idea is, that's the genius of it. It's so succinct. So it's 5 ideas, 5 simple paragraphs, nothing long, nothing complicated about it, but each one is like punchy. Each one is power packed. And as he says, we're now emphasizing relationships among the first 50 of the ideas we've covered, and the cohesiveness of the thought system to which they are leading you, so that they are all interrelated. And then, let's read these slides quickly. Importance of reviews. So Kim, if you can read, and I think it's Elaine's turn. If you can read this slide, quite a bit going on there.
Yes, review 1, importance of reviews. You only review ideas when you are serious about learning them. Reviewing is a basic part of any course and a basic part of A Course in Miracles. Jesus asks us to have review periods in a miracle, principle 15 in the text. Notes on this course should be read only under good learning conditions. They should also be reviewed with the same rule applying to review periods. I'll tell you when, but remember to ask. Shall I continue?
Yeah, finish the slide, yeah.
He scheduled review periods for Helen and Bill at the beginning of chapter 3 in the text. The next part of this course rests too heavily on the earlier part not to require its study. Without this, you will become much too fearful when the unexpected does occur to make constructive use of it. He reviews the laws of healing in chapter 26 of the text, 26. Let us review the principles that we have covered and arrange them in a way that summarizes all that must occur for healing to be possible, for when it once is possible, it must occur.
Yeah, and he schedules 6 reviews throughout part 1 of the workbook. So serious about reviewing, because it's a fundamental part of studying. Right? If you study anything, you review it. So it's a normal part of how you study. If you've ever studied for exams or whatever, we all have at some point. You cover the material and then you review it, and you go, okay, so let's just look at it again. And summarizing, reviewing the summary is all it's a known part of learning. It's a very valuable part of learning. So that's why it's a course, right? He's got to train our minds. He's got to teach us a new thought system, and reviewing is one of those important components of that process of teaching. Okay. So then this is a slide about your effect on others. So Kim, if you can read that one. Holiness's effect on others. Kim?
Review 1, holiness, effect on others. Finally, accepting your holiness will have an actual effect on others, on everyone, in fact. You therefore won't be alone in feeling joy about your holiness. Others will share in the joy it brings you. You won't be alone in being unafraid. Everyone must share in your newfound sense of strength.
Yeah, and they're just scenes from Yeshua's life. So that's a scene from The Chosen. What was great about that series is it shows the sort of camaraderie, the connection. That Jesus was very loving, connected to the people around him, his disciples, and so on. There was a great bond of friendship that happened. He wasn't like holier than thou. There you see, I think that's Simon Peter, embracing him, and they're smiling and they're joyful, and it's like, actually, that's what it should be about, right? And sharing of meals, not alone in your sense of strength. So there were frequent meals that they had during his time, during his ministry, and then the final one is when he was in the boat calming the seas. So if you read that, Kim, you won't be alone in seeing the world differently.
You won't be alone in seeing the world differently. The holiness of the world will shine forth for everyone to see.
And so, Yeshua's change of mind clearly profoundly affected the people around him, his disciples, his followers, and the entire world changed because of his change of mind. A very good illustration of how one person can actually change the world. If he's able to hold that higher frequency against all opposition. And it wasn't easy. There was stiff opposition from the powers that be of the day, the Jewish authorities, the Roman authorities, but particularly the Jewish authorities, which is the formal religion of the time, were like dead set against these teachings because it threatened their control structure. But he was able to hold that high frequency, that holiness, in the face of all of it, to the point of his death, and that because he was able to do that over quite a long period of time, 3 years, and built up a following, it ended up radiating out and changing the entire world. The rest is history, as we say. Okay, so the overall spiritual journey. This is quite interesting because it's kind of hinted at here in the guidance notes, but here it makes it more explicit as to what's actually going on, what's happening. So let's see if Archie's back. Archie, you back? No, still. I don't know what's happened to Archie. Obviously, something's come up. So let's, Kim, if you read the overall spiritual journey.
Review 1, the overall spiritual journey. In the first stage, you need to withdraw so you can be alone in a quiet place where you can close your eyes and do your practice without distraction. In the second stage, rather than withdrawing into a haven of isolation, you actively go into upsetting situation as an agent of peace. Through doing this, you eventually learn that peace is simply part of who you are, that you and peace are inseparable, so that all you need to do is show up in a situation and your peace will naturally encompass the entire situation. In the final stage, you have learned that you are not localized in particular situations, and in fact, you are everywhere. And since you already learned that you and peace are inseparable, you now realize that your peace is everywhere, in all situations at once. That is a stage that Jesus reached. He experiences that he is everywhere, and that his peace being part of him is also everywhere.
Yeah, as it says here. You will learn that there's no limit to where you are, so that your peace is everywhere as you are. So this is universal consciousness, universal awareness that all the great teachings point to. So we may wonder how we can ever get there, but the answer is to just go through the stages, right? Do stage 1 so fully, so diligently that you naturally move to stage 2. Right? So you start doing the spiritual practice quietly. in your your own time, and that starts allowing you to take it into your daily life and handle the seemingly upsetting situations in your life differently and apply it in practice. So that's why he says, do a morning and evening. So that's the withdrawing. Morning, just your morning spiritual practice. No one's around, just you doing your practice. Evening, same thing. And then in between, you top yourself up to keep you strong and connected in potentially upsetting situations that happen through the day. So you've got the shorter practice periods to help you through the day. And if you master both of those and you do those diligently, and this can take many years, you finally get to a stage where you realize, but like my peace is everywhere. Like I can never be separated from my peace because I am peace, and this is the fundamental nature of reality, that it underlies everything. So it's everywhere, all the time, everywhere. As Yeshua said, the kingdom of heaven is spread out upon the earth. I think he used those words, spread out upon the earth, but no one sees it because it's subtle, it's energetic, but it's there if you allow yourself to access it. Okay. So that's the spiritual journey from, like, we need time and space initially, then we learn how to practice it in the world in difficult situations, and finally we go, well, it's always there already, everywhere, and I can never be knocked off that. Even a situation as seemingly dire as crucifixion can be overcome. That was what Yeshua demonstrated. So great was his peace that he was able to overcome that pretty severe challenge and still find peace in that situation, which then is a lesson for everyone that it is possible that in the most extreme difficulty, it is possible if you've trained yourself well enough. Okay, and then make it fruitful. So let's read that. Elaine, if you can read that slide on how to make this lesson very fruitful. These review lessons fruitful.
Review 1, make it fruitful. Ring a friend, and should you join a brother as you sit with him in silence and do that day's practice with him, you have established there an altar which reaches to God himself and to his Son. Let it flow in writing. There is another way to hear the Holy Spirit, by allowing him to write through you. This is different from hearing the Holy Spirit in your mind first and then writing what you hear. This is more impromptu. Practicing this way will help you to become, his vessel, where he can express himself through your writing and your voice.
Yeah, so things like the instrument for peace, and there's a written worksheet for the 10-step process, the reflections that I ask you to do as part of the Art of Letting Go course. That's right. That's all part of that. Another way of allowing spirit to come out and express. Okay, and then reading aloud.
Yes, read aloud to myself. You can read aloud Jesus' comments as well as those which you generate on your own. I find that helps with these practice periods. And speak to Jesus. Feel the presence of Jesus in front of you and do the practice as if you are speaking to him. Finish by thanking him for listening to you.
Yeah, so by verbalizing it, it's kind of affirmations. You're actually saying it and bringing the words into actuality. So that's why it's powerful. It's an affirmation of that inner reality. It's now the first thing you can do is speak the word, right? That's why this is it. The word became flesh. In the beginning was the word, and the word became flesh. It uses the term word, which actually means universal awareness, but interesting that it uses words in the Bible verse. because it acknowledges the power of the spoken word. It's the first manifestation in this world of your intent. Whatever's going on in your mind, thought, you speak it, and now it starts to become so-called real, come into actuality in this world. That's why speaking it aloud, speaking to Jesus, if that's your thing, you can have a conversation. So you're really speaking to this presence of the awakened self, the true self that he represents, which is in you. So if you have a dialogue with Jesus, you're basically having a dialogue with your true self. And again, you're making that more real to yourself by speaking to it, having a conversation with them. You might not want to do that in front of other people because they'll think you're going slightly potty, but that's not that's why a lot of these things are best done in private. If you start speaking to Jesus in your work or in the middle of a public place, people will go, okay, it's like, so this person's kind of lost it. So a lot of these practices are best done in private, but you get the idea. It starts making this actual manifest, and it starts bringing the spirit, which is out of form, into some kind of form in the world through words, just speaking it. You can now hear the sound. It's a vibration. It brings it into manifestation, which is why the spoken word is so powerful. In many traditions, the actual language, the way they say the word, is the frequency of it, if you like, is a very important part of the word's effect. It's not just the meaning; it's the actual sound that it has. Some of these ancient languages, like Sanskrit and Aramaic, were very good at encoding the essence of the meaning of the word into its structure vibrationally. So when you said it, it took on the meaning of the word. It had a kind of vibrational effect. If you understand what I'm trying to say, hopefully that makes sense.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the central point of each paragraph. Kim, if you can read that one.
Review 1, the central point of each paragraph. How to read. As you read each paragraph, try to put every sentence in one of the two buckets. All paragraphs contain the same two central points. This can be said the whole course. My current choice has cost me vision. I can choose differently and regain vision. How to regenerate comments. First, repeat the title of the paragraph and generate thoughts related to the two central points above. It is like sending into the sky a red rocket, followed by a blue rocket that circles around for a while before going out.
So it's asking you to reflect on the ideas from these two perspectives, right? There's two ways of looking at it. This is your current default thought system, the egos, and you can make a different choice, see it differently, and regain vision or true perception by shifting your choice. And you do it in real time. As you're thinking about the idea and you apply it to your life, you go, okay, I can see here that I'm seeing in one way, and I can feel the attachment to that, the resistance to changing it, but this is inviting me to change my mind about it and make a different choice. And that's really what all these lessons are about doing, so that it becomes, not just theory, it's actually changing your mind about yourself, your life, the situations in your life in a very powerful, profound way that is literally life-changing. Okay. Any questions on any of that? We all know there's two ways of looking at it, two thought systems. And then finally, Archie's back. So if you can read this one, Archie. Final one, hearing a whole paragraph from the Holy Spirit.
Yeah. Hearing a whole paragraph from the Holy Spirit. This practice is a version of letting related thoughts come, only rather than having a series of standalone thoughts, our thoughts now form a continuous narrative. but we still let them come as spontaneously as possible. If we really stay on top of this, it's surprising how a coherent flow of thoughts can just spill out of our minds.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah, I need to
Related.
read it again.
Hmm?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So
Yeah, summarize it
yeah,
in
it
your
says,
own words. What's he saying?
yeah, is it like kind of stream of consciousness type
Yeah,
approach? Yeah,
letting related thoughts come.
yeah,
Thoughts now form a continuous narrative. So one thought kind of leads to another, becomes a process of reflection around the central idea. Then often you apply it to your life. That's naturally what your mind tends to do, right? Okay, so I got this problem in my life. You reflect on the idea. You start to see how it relates to that situation. You start seeing how it could help you change your mind about the situation. And maybe you go into 5, 10 minutes of thinking about it. That can happen. You're like, okay, I'm changing my mind about the situation. I'm perceiving it differently, and this lesson is just a catalyst for that process to happen. It's like shaking it up. You know what a catalyst is in a chemical reaction? It just
mm.
creates the circumstances for the chemical reaction to happen. It's the same thing. The idea is like the catalyst, and it's like, okay, now something else is going to happen, and you allow that to happen. You don't fight it or restrict it, and it takes you into what can be a very profound process of changing your mind. You're changing your thoughts literally about that particular situation. And so every day you have that opportunity. When you're practicing with a lesson, it gives you that opportunity with any situation that you're dealing with, which is why it's so powerful. Did you miss the bit about contemplation and reflection and stuff?
No,
Yeah,
I did hear that.
yeah, you heard it. Yeah. So that it's in that sort of Christian mystic tradition of really contemplating on scripture and allowing related thoughts to come. And he's used that in the course. Except he's just giving us a new scripture, saying this is better than the Bible, basically. If the Bible was adequate, he would have said just stick to the Bible. But evidently it's not. He's given us a course because he's saying it doesn't have the full picture by any means. Because it's been edited and was written over hundreds of years by different people, and the New Testament's very clearly got a different consciousness from the Old Testament. So you can't lumping them into the same book is crazy. They're two different thought systems. Like, no wonder there's people get confused. Well, okay, the Old Testament's all about this crazy, insane God and this tribe that's lost in the desert and all this historical stuff, and they're calling on this God to help them defeat their enemies. And then the New Testament is completely different. It's like, how do you meld them? Like, why were they merged together? That's like didn't really make a lot of sense because it was a completely new thought. So they acknowledge, okay, so the New Testament was like, let's bond them all together. And it's like, okay, well, now there's going to be a lot of contradictions internally in that book. That's the problem. Whereas in the course, there aren't because it's coming from one awakened mind. Okay. Just those little bits, conditions for hearing the Holy Spirit initially. So it's quoting from the course.
Mm-hmm.
Just
So
read that.
conditions for hearing the Holy Spirit initially. The review exercises should be done with eyes closed and when you are alone in a quiet place, if possible. Later on, it will be necessary, however, that you learn how to require no special settings in which to apply what you have learned about hearing the Holy Spirit. You will need it most in situations which appear to be upsetting, rather than in those which already seem to be calm and quiet.
Yeah, interesting. So a lot of people are like, oh, I can't practice because conditions aren't ideal.
Mm.
And he's saying, no, that's exactly when you do need to practice. You need it most then, when all hell's breaking loose, and you can just remember your idea for the day. It becomes your anchor to something else, to sanity. And I know this practically experientially. It's like if you can just hold on to that one idea, it's an anchor into a different state of mind. And if you can hold that in the face of whatever chaos is going on, it can be very, very helpful in maintaining your peace of mind in a seemingly upsetting situation. Okay, and then just the last purpose of your learning.
Yeah, the purpose of your learning to hear the Holy Spirit is to enable you to bring the quiet with you and to heal.
Yeah, so ultimately, wherever you go, you become the peace. You become a presence of peace, of another thought system that, just by your presence, you bring that into any situation. So the most powerful awakened beings in history, just by their mere presence, can transform an entire room, because their frequency is so high that that field goes out and affects everyone. And anyone who comes into that field is quite profoundly affected in one of two ways. Interesting. So Carl Jung talks about the effect of polarization is one of the effects that happens when you start awakening. And so people are polarized either against you or towards you. So if you get strong opposition from someone for no apparent reason, then that's a polarization effect against, because something in them doesn't like the frequency that you brought into their presence, and they react against that. Subconsciously, you might not even, they just immediately have a resistance. We've all, it's like, what's going on here? And then on the flip side, some people are polarized towards you. They just somehow attracted towards you, and they want to connect and they want to share, and it just kind of happens organically, and it feels like a really holy interaction because they resonate with your frequency. And so they polarize towards you. And that it is, in fact, if you look at Yeshua as our teacher and example of all this, he did that, on another level, right? He polarized people dramatically. On the one hand, he had his, the Pharisees and the Sadducees who were strongly oppositional to him. They were like, right, this guy is, has got to go. He's a destabilizer. He's a radical. We've got to find every way to silence him, to trick him, ultimately to crucify him, because it disturbed their status quo, and it brought he made them have to look at things about themselves they didn't want to look about. They didn't want to look at, because he was very vocal. He just called it as it was. So they didn't. They polarized against him, but then many people polarized towards him and went, "God, this guy's amazing, and he's the Messiah, and he's a great teacher, and we dedicate our lives to following him and studying his words." And there's a great love for him as well. So I think the lesson is not everyone's going to like you. If you really strongly stand for truth, expect opposition. It's going to happen. Not everyone is going to be overjoyed at that choice and is going to embrace it. So it's just a normal part of the awakening process. Expect it from certain people, and then certain people will really resonate and be attracted to you, and that's you can welcome that. That's a nice effect, but also be prepared for the other effect. But then that just becomes another thing to practice on. Okay, that's just the ego coming up, and that's what I need to let go of.
And the healing that's referred to there, Jonathan, is that the healing of the mind, when it says to bring the quiet with you and to heal? Yeah.
Yeah, healing comes from the same root word as wholeness.
Yeah.
So it's letting go of the idea of separation, bringing the mind back to wholeness. And when that happens, physical effects happen, right? You've changed the energy frequency, your system becomes more coherent, and physical healing can happen because it's all energetic. Ultimately, the body's an energy system, as we saw with Yeshua. It was because his frequency was so high, he brought people into alignment with that. They shifted quite dramatically out of an old frequency into a new frequency, and then bang, healing happened. The physical, was a symptom of the energetic shift that had taken place. And that's how he did it. It wasn't magic, it was just a frequency. And he even said, it's your own belief that's done it. It's because you accepted his teachings and his frequency, you were receptive, that then embedded in you. You changed your mind, you changed your frequency, and bang, suddenly the old pattern, whatever the condition was that the person had, they were bleeding, or they were a leper, or they were lame, or whatever, it's suddenly gone because the energy has shifted dramatically. And remember, they didn't have all the conditioning that we now have in this world, in this time. They didn't have a scientific materialist paradigm. That didn't exist at that point. So there was no like, oh, but my doctor says this is impossible. There wasn't that didn't really exist. So they were like, okay, he's the Messiah, anything's possible, right? That was the belief that grew up around it. And then the more that happened, the more people believed, and the stronger the field became. Oh, well, it happened for people in Judea, so why can't it happen here? The word spread. Why can't it happen here? So people would go to him in this expectancy of like, yeah, this can absolutely happen. In fact, they already believed that it would happen. See, they already had that belief. They'd already set that. So he didn't really have to do anything. It's like, well, you already believe. So, like, all of that one famous instance, the woman touched his cloak, and then she's instantly healed of a dread disease of 30 years or something. And he's like, well, you just, happened because you believed. And you'd already convinced yourself that when you touched my cloak, you were going to be healed. You already set that in your mind. You believed it probably for weeks, maybe months. She'd been looking forward to it. It was like, okay, the moment she touched him, it was like all of that belief activated, changed her whole biochemistry, her energy field, and bang, done. And he's like, well, it's just your belief that did that. So it's actually so simple when you understand how it works, right? It's just science. It's electromagnetic frequency and vibration. But obviously, when you don't understand it, it seems like inexplicable. And it's a miracle. And in his time, no one understood these laws, so they were like, "Whoa!" Like this must be supernatural, the work of God. But he was just working with energy in a very skillful way that wasn't normal at all. And he's saying, you can do that too. He said, I'll teach you how to do that. You'll have you can do these things that I've done and even greater things. He promised that. So he's saying, okay, here we go. I've waited 2,000 years. Finally, I've released my course to the world. Here is my training. And you can take it if you want it. That's just amazing. That's sensational. That's like the best news we've ever had. The greatest spiritual master of all time has given us a detailed course to allow us to become exactly like him. So why isn't everyone like falling all over themselves to study it? That's the question. Because it's difficult. Because it's not easy. He's challenging us. If it was easy, then everyone would be on it and would be like, okay, yeah, just snap your fingers and you're done. But it's a process. It's not easy at all. But it is doable. If you just persist and you go. That's why he's saying process. Do the process. Just do what he says you must do. Do the lessons every day. Practice them in the morning, in the evening, and during the day. And if you do that consistently, then things are going to change. Your mind's going to change. Your energetic frequency is going to change. Things are going to start changing on the external because that's how it works. And you're going to get a transformation over time. And whatever time is right for you, whatever you can handle, basically, will happen. We all shift at different paces. Some people are more open, they can go quicker. Some people slowly. But the fact is, you're doing it and you're in your own process. And that's all he wants. He wants to get you engaged in a process, committed to the process, and say, okay, I'm going to follow this process for the rest of my life to its logical conclusion, which is my full awakening, my full enlightenment. That's where it's going to take you. That's his promise. Okay. So, good introduction, quite a long one, but this is important because it's how you practice all the review lessons. So there's 7 more to go. So let's dive into we're actually, I think I'm in the wrong lesson, but let's get to this one. This is today's one. So my meaningless thoughts are showing. This is actually, these are 5 particularly powerful lessons. So let's read them Read them in the original, and then in the alternative, just sentence by sentence, as we normally do. So, Elaine, if you'd like to read the original of number 11, and
Yeah.
Archie, if you read the alternative.
My meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. Since the thoughts of which I am aware do not mean anything, the world that pictures them can have no meaning.
Okay, and then Archie.
My meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. Since the thoughts of which I'm aware do not mean anything, the world that depicts them can have no meaning.
What is producing this world is insane, and so is what it produces.
What is producing this world is insane, and so is what it produces.
Reality is not insane, and I have real thoughts as well as insane ones.
Reality is not insane, and so I have real thoughts as well as insane ones.
I can therefore see a real world if I look to my real thoughts as my guide for seeing.
I can therefore perceive a real world if I follow my real thoughts as my guide for perceiving.
Yeah. So then just read it from the top, Archie, just to kind of bed it down.
Yeah. My meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. Since the thoughts of which I'm aware do not mean anything, the world that depicts them can have no meaning. What is producing this world is insane, and so is what it produces. Reality is not insane, and so I have real thoughts as well as insane ones. I can therefore perceive a real world if I follow my real thoughts as my guide for perceiving.
Okay, thoughts on that?
I'm still trying to get my head around it all.
Yeah.
I don't understand why it says reality is not insane, because I thought reality is all an illusion, therefore it is insane.
Ah, so he's talking about true reality here.
True reality, okay, yeah.
Yeah, reality with a capital R just happens to be at
Yeah,
the
the beginning of the
beginning of a
sentence.
sentence. But
Yeah.
if it was in the middle of a sentence, it would be
Yes.
reality capital R as opposed to
Yes.
small. So,
Okay.
so what he's referring to is this reality, the blue, God, oneness, pure formless
Yes.
awareness, and perfect love.
Yeah.
Reality. I think I've actually called it that over here. There's a fuller catalog of names, list of names
Yeah.
that you can look at. So have I
Yeah.
called it reality? Yeah, reality.
Yes, it's before
But
essence.
all of that's
Yeah.
capitalized.
Yeah.
So when
Yeah.
when a term is capitalized in my translations, it's referring to this top
Yeah.
level,
Yeah.
ultimate, absolute reality,
Yeah.
essence, awareness, whatever you. That words can't really describe it, right? They just point to it.
Yeah.
But we get the idea. If it's capitalized, that's the sign that that's what you're talking about. So that in a guy called Ken Wapnick, who's one of the was the original course teacher. He called this level one reality, okay,
Yeah.
with a capital R, and then this is level two, which is the illusion,
Yeah.
which we seem to operate at, but it's not ultimately real. So this is the unreal world.
Yes.
The real world is the world that's perceived from this perspective. So the perspective of the true self or higher awareness, but you're perceiving the world of unreality, but now from the perspective of oneness.
Yeah.
That's the real world.
Yeah.
So it's still perceptual, but it's the reinterpreted world, the corrected world, the healed world.
Yeah.
Which is what he's trying to teach us how to do, right? So all of these terms, perception, Christ's vision, miracle, corrections, forgiveness, letting go, flow, surrender, acceptance, salvation, atonement or atonement, the last judgment, the second coming, enlightenment, satori, rebirth, resurrection, awakening, grace, transformation, intuition, guidance, healing. Those are all terms that are talking about that transformation of mind. So you're still in the perceptual realm, but you're changing your mind. And what you're doing is you're upgrading your self concept to be the true self, which is kind of an intermediary. It's a bridge between the false self, that's completely false, and pure awareness, which doesn't even have a self,
Yeah.
right? At the highest level, there is no self, really. It's just pure awareness. There's no definition to it. But in this world, the true self is the closest approximation to it. It's like the avatar, if you like, that can take this this higher awareness, and it can channel it through a self concept that can perceive and still operate and function in the world.
Yeah.
Because, the question is, if there's no self, who perceives, right?
Mm.
Ultimately, the answer is, well, no one perceives, i.e., there's no perception. So when it all collapses into pure awareness and there's no duality, then there's no perception. And
Yeah.
that's the ultimate state of awakening. But while we're here, we seem to perceive, right? There seems
Yeah.
to be subject-object perception going on. So to allow us to function in the world, he's saying, okay, well, you've got this idea of a true self or the Christ, which is able to hold this awareness of oneness at the same time as perceiving the world. And
Yeah.
now it just interprets everything in the world from the perspective of oneness rather than from separation.
Yeah.
And so it's an operating system that bridges the gap between the realities. Very clever, right? It's clever, psychologically elegant solution to the problem of separation. And that is what the Holy Trinity is. Now, you will never read that in Christian theologians, in Christian theology. They don't get it. Like, I've never read that analysis of the Holy Spirit, of the Holy Trinity. They all get it completely wrong, because what they try and do is they try and make the Holy Spirit and the Christ and God into some, they're all entities, and now they're one, but they're apparently separate. And they co-equal, but they seem to have a separate identity. And it gets into a horrible muddle. It just doesn't work. What they don't realize is that these are temporary illusions in a dream world that are very useful illusions, because they help you to awaken from the dream world back to the oneness that transcends these. So God is on a higher level than Christ and the Holy Spirit. These are illusory mechanisms to awaken in the world. But like, you're in a maze, and you need a line of string or something to help you get out. The string is really, really important while you're in the matrix, right? But when you're out of the matrix, out of the maze, it doesn't matter. You don't need the string anymore. You don't, just like you don't need the Holy Spirit anymore when you're here. Make sense?
Yep.
So it all collapses then into oneness, and you don't need to remember perfect love when you are perfect love.
Yeah.
The memory of it is not required anymore, because you just are that. You're completely wholly one with that, and that's the union, the divine. That all the great teachings of the perennial philosophy talk about. But it's hard to get there is the question. All very well to say, oh well, yes, that's the absolute state. We agree on that. But how do you get from a state of believing your separate self in a crazy world? How do you get back there?
Yeah.
That's the question. And you need a system to do that, and that's what he's given us.
Yeah.
This mind training is the Holy Trinity in operation. How do you actually actualize this? How do you actually do it? And he's given us the best system, I believe, because if he's the greatest spiritual master ever, he's gonna know the way out, isn't it? He's done it. He knows the way, so he can teach us the way. It's logical. You wouldn't want to try and learn it from someone who hasn't learned the way already. He's got to know the way to be the guide, to show you the way out.
Yeah.
Which is why we trust him, because it's like, okay, we see from what he did in his life that yes, he did find his way out. He was ultimately perfectly enlightened. So, okay, accept him as my teacher, and that's what he wants. That you just accept his guidance and his teaching, and then he'll show you how to operate the system and get much better at doing it than you are currently. Because this is a lifetime's work. It's simple in a diagram, but to actually operate this and have true perception no matter what's going on here is quite a challenge, because as we know, all hell can break loose and all kinds of dramas and chaos and madness, and then you've got to have true perception of it.
Yeah.
And translate this into whatever distressing situation seems to manifest, and hold that, become so psychologically integrated that nothing here disturbs you. And then you're fully established in the true self, and you're ready for the final step, which he says, don't worry about that because God will do that. You'll just merge back into this awareness when you're ready. You let go of the body at that point, you merge back into the awareness, and you're home. So he's not training us to do that. He's saying, I'm going to train you how to do this, because that's going to get you into a rock solid awareness of your true self. And at that point, you're ready for that final shift to happen. And it'll just happen when you're ready. All he says is, God takes the final step. Okay, so let's go back then to happy with number. Does that make sense, Archie?
Yeah,
My meaningless
yes, it
thoughts are showing
does.
me a meaningless world.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
So a false thought system is going to show you a meaningless world. That's what he's saying.
Yeah.
Because the thought system is meaningless, so what it shows you must also be meaningless, because it can't be otherwise. You can't have a false thought system that's now going to show you something that's true and meaningful. Like creates like. So if it's false by definition, then it's meaningless. Then what it's going to show you is meaningless. Therefore, all of your egoic perceptions are absolutely meaningless. And therein lies a huge relief. It doesn't mean anything. It's completely ridiculous. Doesn't mean anything. It's just given. I've given it all the meaning that it has for me. That's lesson number 2. And I'm only ever upset because I see a meaningless world. That's his next point. Okay, so let's switch it. Archie, maybe you read the original, and Kim, you read the alternative, line by line.
Yeah. I'm upset because I see a meaningless world.
I am upset because I perceive a meaningless world.
Insane thoughts are upsetting.
Insane thoughts are upsetting.
They produce a world in which there is no order anywhere.
They produce a world in which there is no order anywhere.
Only chaos rules a world that represents chaotic thinking, and chaos has no laws.
Only chaos rules a world that represents chaotic thinking, and chaos has no laws.
I cannot live in peace in such a world.
I cannot live in peace in such a world.
I am grateful that this world is not real and that I need not see it at all unless I choose to value it.
I'm grateful that this world is not real, and I need not perceive it at all, unless I choose to value it.
And I do not choose to value what is totally insane and has no meaning.
And I do not choose to value what is totally insane and has no meaning.
Okay, and then Kim, if you can read the alternative again from the top.
I'm upset because I perceive a meaningless world. Insane thoughts are upsetting. They produce a world in which there is no order anywhere. Only chaos rules a world that represents chaotic thinking, and chaos has no laws. I cannot live in peace in such a world. I'm grateful that this world is not real and that I need not perceive it at all unless I choose to value it. I do not choose to value what is totally insane and has no meaning.
Yeah, so fairly clear, I'd say. You can't say it's not being clear. It's just radical. Okay, so I don't have to value this world, and if I don't value it, then I won't even perceive it. It will disappear. It's the value that I attach to it that's the problem. But I can change my mind about that. I don't have to value it if I don't choose to. So again, the idea of choice, unless I choose to value it. Forgiveness is a choice. It's a choice to perceive differently, to undo the ego. So I'm going to not value what I previously valued. I'm going to let go of that value that I gave it. And he's saying, well, this is the whole world. The entire projection is a projection of a separate self, which is insane. The separate self doesn't exist. The separate self doesn't mean anything. Therefore, the world must be totally insane. and have no meaning. Now, your ego, of course, says, "Oh, this absolutely can't be true. The world is real, and the world has plenty of meaning because you've given it all the meaning that it has." But that's just self-created meaning. That's not absolute meaning. That's entirely in your mind, right? Can you see that? The meaning you give in the world is entirely up to you. It's a belief system. How do you know it means that? Well, maybe other people have taught that, you've learned it from other sources, but nevertheless, it's what you chose to believe. You didn't have to believe that. Can you see that there's a choice behind all of this? Often a default choice. We don't know we're making that choice. As we grow up and we learn, we get conditioned to the world's ways, we don't realize we're choosing. We are choosing. It's just not a conscious choice. So what he's trying to say to us is become consciously aware of your choices so you can start making better ones. That process is called forgiveness or letting go or transformation or healing, whatever you want to call it. Process of making a different choice, which reflects back on our original theme from Gandhi quote, we must become the change we want in the world. So it's a different choice that we make that does that. Seek not to change the world, but seek to change your mind. Choose to change your mind about the world. And that changes everything. And then once you've made that shift in choice, why would you get upset? If it's all insane, why do you find it upsetting? It doesn't have any meaning. So why would you get upset over what's totally meaningless? You see the logic of the Holy Spirit, which is infallible, but you got to hold to this when the images in the world seem to be meaningful. When they come and they press your buttons, what that means in this language is that you've given them a meaning. You've assigned a value and a meaning to them, and now it's difficult for you to let go of it. But that is just a past choice that is now coming up to be looked at and reflected on and let go of, which is why it's all perfect in its imperfection to help you to heal that faulty choice and that false self that is choosing falsely. Does that all make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's quite simple, but nevertheless profound, and it requires a lot of vigilance to realize that you only have upset because you perceive a meaningless world in the face of all the world's chaos and insanity, which is pushing your buttons, is not always easy. But that's why we have the lessons. I say, just remember the lesson, right? In the chaos, bring the lesson in there. Immediately you think this thought, it's going to stabilize your nervous system. It's going to make activate your parasympathetic nervous system. Your heart becomes more coherent, and you settle into a frequency of peace again, which is what we're training our minds to do. Okay. So any other thoughts or comments on that one? Should we go on to number 13? A meaningless world engenders fear. So let's switch it again. So Kim, if you read the original, and Elaine, you read the alternative.
Meaningless world engenders fear.
A meaningless world engenders fear.
The totally insane engenders fear because it is completely undependable and offers no grounds for trust.
The totally insane engenders fear because it is completely undependable and offers no grounds for trust.
Nothing in madness is dependable.
Nothing in madness is dependable.
I have given it the illusion of reality and have suffered from my...
You missed a couple, Kim. It holds out no
Okay.
safety and no hope.
It holds out no safety and no hope.
It holds out no safety and no hope.
But such a world is not real.
But such a world is not real.
I have given it the illusion of reality and have suffered from my belief in it.
I have given it the illusion of reality and have suffered from my belief in it.
Now I choose to withdraw this belief and place my trust in reality.
And now I choose to let go of this belief and place my trust in reality.
Okay.
In choosing this, I'll escape all the effects of the world of fear, because I am acknowledging that it does not exist.
I will escape all the effects of the world of fear, because I am recognizing that it does not exist. And from the top, the totally insane engenders fear because it is completely undependable and offers no grounds for trust. Nothing in madness is dependable. It holds out no safety, no hope. But such a world is not real. I have given it the illusion of reality and have suffered from my belief in it. Now I choose to let go of this belief and place my trust in reality. In choosing this, I will escape all the effects of the world of fear because I am recognizing that it does not exist.
Yeah, so there's the theme of choice again, right? Choice. I choose to let go of this belief. And in choosing this, I'll escape all the effects of the world of fear. So choice is really at the heart of the forgiveness process. It's another choice. Instead of valuing one thing, one idea, thought system that comes from that idea, you're going to choose to value another and place your trust in there. Archie, you see the capital R?
Yeah.
Reality.
Yeah.
So you see why I've done that, because in the original, it's small,
Yes.
which then is very confusing.
Yeah.
It's my trust in reality, but it's small. Okay, so what does that mean then?
Yeah, which
Why is
reality
it
are
small
you?
when you're talking about top
Yeah.
level, absolute reality?
Yeah.
And I think that's just, they were. I mean, this is a massive work in editing it. They didn't necessarily get that right.
Mm.
They made some of them small and some of them big, and there isn't really a consistency. And if you look at it now in hindsight, it's like, well, that doesn't really make sense, right? They should have put a capital.
Mm.
Remember, this was all done in editing. The words were given to Helen Schuckman, and she wrote them down as they were kind of spoken to in her mind. So Jesus wouldn't have gone, oh, in reality, capital R. He wouldn't have done that, would he? He just spoke.
Yeah.
It was a free flow. So then they had to, once you'd written it down, edit it all and go, oh, okay, so should that word be capitalized, or small? And I can just imagine, a monumental task. Imagine like, you're at whatever time, 11 o'clock at night, and you're like, okay, so let's just get through this. And it's like, okay, like we just missed some of the details. You can absolutely imagine how it could happen because there were two of them who did it. It was Ken Wapnick and Helen. And it must have taken them, a couple of years of like detailed work. Very easy to miss these details. But it's important because it can be confusing.
Yeah.
That now indicates, okay, reality is top level, level one. Okay, very clearly, that's another reality from this small r reality. Okay, so now the capitalization allows us to distinguish between the two, which is really, really important. That's what the whole course is about. Distinguishing between the two different thought systems, the two different realities. Anything that helps you do that is a helpful learning aid.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, those are the key points. Any comments on that? Anyone? Any questions? Elaine, maybe just summarize in your own words what's he saying here in this paragraph.
It's just saying about the meaningless world in the reality of illusion just makes us fearful. And to escape this fear, we need to really recognize that it just does not exist.
Yeah.
It's just insane.
If it's just a dream, then why are you fearing a dream? We've all had dreams at night, nightmares. It's been scary, and then we wake up and go, oh, that moment when you wake and you're like, okay, thank goodness that was just a dream. So what he's saying is this is just another version of a dream. It's just much more real seeming dream and much more difficult to awaken from it. But nevertheless, you can. It's still a dream state, and you can awaken from it given the right mind training and that you consistently perceive it correctly. And none of this needs to bother you because it's just images projected onto a screen in a dream, and you're living in a dream world, and none of it really means anything. So whatever the apparently real consequence of it seem to be, they're not real. The character you're playing isn't real. The whole thing's made up. Just remembering that when it's all kicking off around you and you seem to be very much real, and part of what's going on is then the art of letting go, right? That's how you wake up. And those tests are your tests. And okay, so how well have you really learned this? All very well to get it theoretically. Yeah, I get the course. It's all, yeah, fine. Until the shit hits the fan. And then it's like another matter entirely, right? Okay, yeah, I really get it, but I'm really shitting myself. If you pardon the French, because it's related to that illusion. It's like, yes, because now it apparently is real in your mind, and all of the value that you've given the so-called reality and the separate self now comes to the fore, and now you've got to really confront that and overcome that by reminding yourself that none of this is true. What you're perceiving isn't true, the world's not true, the perception of it isn't true, the value that you've given it isn't true, your beliefs about it isn't true. None of it's true. So why are you fearful? Why can't you just stay in peace, which is your natural default state, your true reality? So there's a logic to this. The Holy Spirit has an absolute logic that is actually irrefutable, but the ego is going to try and refute it all the time. And that's the duality you're always dealing with. To overcome that, the ego's doubt and all of its attachment, and just keep making this very single-minded choice for reality against illusion. That's forgiveness when you do that. Okay. So next one, number 14, God did not create a meaningless world. One of the most powerful ideas in the whole course, actually. And it solves the conundrum that no formal religion has managed to solve. If God created the world and God is a God of love, then what the hell? Like, why would a God of love create such madness? Yeah, here's the problem. So one of those statements, God is love, or God created the world, one of those must be false. And this is telling us which one is false. Okay, so to read it again. Who would like to read the original? Who would like to read the alternative?
I can read the original.
Okay.
After the alternative.
Okay, Kim.
Yeah. God did not create a meaningless world.
Pure formless awareness of perfect love did not create a meaningless world.
How can a meaningless world exist if God did not create it?
How can a meaningless world exist if pure formless awareness of perfect love did not create it?
He is the source of all meaning, and everything that is real is in his mind.
It is a source of all meaning, and everything that is real is in its awareness.
It is in my mind too, because he created it with me.
It is in my awareness too, because perfect love extends itself as me.
Why should I continue to suffer from the effects of my own insane thoughts when the perfection of creation is my home?
Okay.
Why should I continue to suffer from the effects of my own insane thoughts when the perfection of being is my home?
Let me remember the power of my decision and recognize where I really abide.
I choose to remember the power of my decision and recognize where I really live.
Okay, and then from the top, Kim.
Pure formless awareness of perfect love did not create a meaningless world. How can a meaningless world exist if pure formless awareness of perfect love did not create it? It is the source of all meaning and everything that is real and in its awareness. It is in my awareness too, because perfect love extends itself as me. Why should I continue to suffer from the effects of my own insane thoughts when the perfection of my being is my home? I choose to remember the power of my decision and recognize where I really live.
Okay, thoughts on that? What's he saying? Any
So,
comments, questions?
so God, or your formless awareness, did not create these insane thoughts. So, and okay. We shouldn't have to. We shouldn't. We can choose not to suffer from this insane world. It's not real. All the thoughts of it, it's not real. We've got the power to choose to recognize where we really live, which is within pure formless awareness or source.
Yeah, and it's a very important philosophical point. When I got this, I was actually reading Disappearance of the Universe. But it's interesting because I'd read this in the course. At this point, I'd done the lessons, so I'd read it, but I didn't really get it. It's like interesting how the ego just gives you these blind spots. It's like, and then it came in Disappearance of the Universe in a conversation that the Ascended Masters were having with Gary Renard, and I just like really the penny dropped. I was like, oh my God, literally, and oh my God, like this isn't real because God didn't create it. So what I'm looking at is unreality. I'm in an illusion, a dream world, a fiction. God had absolutely nothing to do with this. And then you start to awaken to the true nature of what's going on here, seeing the matrix. That was like a moment of insight or satori into the true nature of it. And then I was like, well, I'm not sure what to do with that. I was like, oh shit, what do I do? What do I do now? I don't really know what to do with that insight. So I, got up and went and played squash because I didn't know what else to do. It's like, okay, that's in my schedule, so I'll go and just go and do what I do. But it took me years to really integrate that and go, okay, that is actually quite a profoundly disturbing idea, isn't it? That God didn't create this world. That, by the way, it's not a new idea. That's an idea that goes back to Advaita Vedanta, and the Gnostics understood this. They thought that the demiurge, they call it, which was the in our language the ego or consciousness, sitting here at the very top of the ladder, ego, consciousness, universal mind, belief in separation, Satan, demiurge, that made up the world. That's what created the world. So they had the right idea, which then leads you out of the matrix. Right? If you realize it's all the demiurge, you start treating it as true and real and sacred. You start letting it go, and you start returning your mind to God or the pure awareness that exists before the demiurge, before the demiurge being the idea of separation. Right? Demiurge, demi means God, demigod, and an urge to become God, really, an urge to separate and become our own individual hotshot God who's now in charge, right? That's what it is. Separate from our own true awareness, create a false awareness, say that this is now who we are, this is now our God, and then all hell breaks loose, literally. And we create chaos and mayhem, and now we suffer and we die because of it. And now we're struggling to figure out what went wrong. So we've got to unpick, all the illusion and realize that this consciousness that created the world is not God. And this is false. This is the ego, a false consciousness that doesn't even really exist, which is why all of its projections are illusory and don't really exist. Okay. So very, very simple idea, but in practice, to live this requires a lot of skill because you're dealing with apparent reality, you're dealing with all these projections, you're dealing with the seeming consequences of guilt and sin and fear and attack. You seem to be a helpless, innovator, little life trapped in a body. The laws of limitation, lack, loneliness, suffering, and death seem to operate here. And now you've got to hold this awareness that none of this is real, and actually only this true awareness is real, even though I'm seeing the opposite so much. Yeah, quite a challenge. But as long as you understand what the game is, then at least you know, okay, so that's what I got to do. Yeah, it might be difficult, but it's not impossible, as people like Yeshua have demonstrated for us. And as I said, it solves that ancient conundrum that every religion struggles with. Every formal religion that says God created the world then has this seemingly unresolvable problem, the very core of it. Okay, so God is love, that's what the religion tells you, but God created the world. But there's so much that's not loving in the world. The fact that it's hating and attacking and fearing and judgmental, and people suffer and they die, and et cetera, et cetera. So clearly that's not love. So now, hang on, there's a fundamental contradiction between those two statements. God is love, God created the world. They can't both be true, right? Logically. And then what formal religion says, oh, well, these are mysteries we can't understand. So just forget about it and trust in God anyway, and go to church and say your prayers and everything's going to be okay. Except until you resolve that paradox, it's not going to be okay. Because that paradox is going to remain in your mind, the splinter in your mind driving you mad. That's why so many people then question formal religion, especially when things go wrong. They go like, hang on, like I thought God was supposed to be a loving God, and then this has happened. Like, what's going on here? Like, how can a loving God have done this? I've heard, had a cancer, I've got cancer or permanent disability, or a loved one has died. Like, what the hell? How can a loving God do this? And the answer is God had nothing to do with it. The demiurge, the consciousness of the separation, had everything to do with it. But God, the remembrance of God, the Holy Spirit, can help you reinterpret it so it's no longer painful. Simply by awakening to the truth that God had nothing to do with it. So that's the way out of all pain and suffering. Okay. So you see how it resolves the paradox, and it's the only way to resolve that paradox. Otherwise, you just get caught up in a contradiction that's then fundamental to the whole thought system, which means the thought system doesn't really make sense because there's a fundamental contradiction at its heart which hasn't been addressed and resolved. So it's logically inconsistent. And you could say that of every formal religion, logically inconsistent, doesn't really make sense, doesn't stand the test of true scrutiny. When you really look at it, it breaks down. So of course, people who want you to believe in that say, well, just that's heretical, or you don't have enough faith. You just believe. We've heard all that, because they don't want that critical questioning to come and deconstruct the whole thought system that they're desperately trying to continue believing in, because it gives them some sense of certainty and purpose. But the only way you're ever going to get to the truth is to deconstruct it, because that falsity embeds you, entrenches you in the illusion, and it means you never escape. Which is why all the great teachers, masters like Yeshua, the Buddha, they all challenged the existing religion of their time. They all said, no, this isn't how it is. And the priests of the time didn't like them at all. Neither of them were welcome. They ruffled feathers. In Yeshua's case, big time, to the point of crucifixion. In the Buddha's case, they didn't like him, but they didn't crucify. They were a bit more civilized than that. But he certainly wasn't welcome in traditional Hindu priests. They didn't like him at all because he was denying what they said, and he said they've kind of lost their way, but they've lost the plot. And he came to give a new a new interpretation, a new way for people, just in the same way as Yeshua did. So they were, revolutionaries in their time, which we forget because now it's become, okay, these are now established religions. But at the time when they came, they weren't at all. It was completely new. And they were challenging the existing status quo of the thought system of their time. Okay. Make sense? Any questions about that?
Makes sense.
Yeah. All right, so let's do number 15 then, last one. Switch it again. So maybe Archie, you do the alternative, and Elaine, how about you do the original? Okay, Elaine, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. But
You can read the original, sentence by sentence.
oh, sorry. Yes, yes, yeah. My thoughts are images that I have made.
My thoughts are images that I have made.
Whatever I see reflects my thoughts.
Whatever I see reflects my thoughts.
It is my thoughts that tell me where I am and what I am.
It is my thoughts that tell me where I am and what I am.
The fact I see a world in which there is suffering and loss and death shows me that I am seeing only the representation of my insane thoughts, and I am not allowing my real thoughts to cast their beneficent light on what I see.
The fact that I perceive a world in which there is suffering, loss, and death shows me that I am perceiving only the representation of my insane thoughts and am not allowing my real thoughts to cast their beneficent awareness on what I perceive.
Yet God's way is sure.
Yet perfect love's way is sure.
The images I have made cannot prevail against him, because it is not my will that they do so.
The images I have made cannot prevail against it, because it is not my will that they do so.
My will is his, and I will place no other gods before him.
My awareness is the same as perfect love's, and so I choose not to obscure this awareness any longer with my false beliefs.
Okay, and then from the top, Archie, in the alternative.
Yeah, so my thoughts are images that I have made. Whatever I see reflects my thoughts. It is my thoughts that tell me where I am and what I am. The fact that I perceive a world in which there is suffering, loss, and death shows me that I am perceiving only the representation of my insane thoughts and am not allowing my real thoughts to cast their beneficent awareness on what I perceive. Yet perfect love's way is sure. The images I have made cannot prevail against it, because it is not my will that they do so. My awareness is the same as perfect love's, and so I choose not to obscure this awareness any longer with my false beliefs.
Okay, thoughts on that?
Yeah, so it's my thoughts that create my reality with a little r. And so that, so everything I see in terms of suffering, loss, death, etc., just shows that I'm not perceiving things in the correct way.
Yeah, as within, so without. So
Yeah.
perceive outside, but these are just reflections of my internal insanity.
Yeah.
And I'm not allowing my real thoughts, which come from pure formless awareness of perfect love, to cast their beneficent light or awareness
Mm.
what I perceive. So notice some of the translations. Light becomes awareness,
Yeah.
which light is lovely in language, but what does that actually mean? I think a lot of people are like, well, what is the light? Is that a physical light I must see? Must I visualize a light? What does
Yeah.
that actually mean? It's just an awareness. It's the
Yeah.
awareness of truth, awareness of this oneness that now comes in, and it literally lightens your mind. It frees up the mind to now, be able to connect with its source and feel that fundamental awareness. So, or the alternative is just designed to point you directly to what we're talking about, which is this fundamental awareness we call God.
Mm.
And then notice the last one: my will is His, and I will place no other gods before Him. If you translate that, it's much longer, but this is much clearer in my view. So maybe just read that sentence again.
Yeah. So my awareness is the same as perfect love's. And so I choose not to obscure this awareness any longer with my false beliefs.
Yeah. So that's what my will is His means. I have the same awareness,
Yeah.
and I will place no other gods before Him. The gods are the false beliefs
Yeah.
that you value instead of this awareness. But again, so it's symbolic language. But again, that can be confusing for people. Okay, so what does that mean? No, I don't worship any other gods. I just worship the Christian God or whatever the God is, or the God of Allah, whatever religion you are. So no, I'm not an idolater. But actually, the gods you place before Him are the beliefs that you have that obscure that awareness, like money and material possessions and special relationships and substances that you're addicted to and activities that aren't healthy and so on and so on. Those are the gods talking about. So once you're clear, it's like, okay, I'm choosing to obscure this awareness with my false beliefs. That's what's actually happening here, and that is a choice. Notice the overriding theme in all of these is choice.
Yeah.
You have a choice between an insane world and the real world. And you must make that choice. Otherwise, you are effectively choosing for the insane world. If you don't choose against it, you're for it. It's because it's one or the other. And so by denying the insane, meaningless world, you are then accepting the truth and you're accepting true reality. That's the way this course works. The forgiveness or letting go of the one reality invites the other one into your mind and into your awareness. And so that starts to become your new reality. Now, if you look at it from a quantum perspective, what are you doing? You are choosing another world, right? Literally, many worlds theory. You're choosing another version of reality that coexists with your one, and you're redirecting your thoughts into that other reality and doing that in a very systematic way so that new reality starts to become actualized and it starts to manifest, which then becomes the miracle. So this totally aligns with the theory of quantum mechanics, whether you look at it from a many worlds view or the Copenhagen interpretation that the reality collapses into one when you choose. It's one way of looking at it. Or you just, many worlds, those possibilities still exist. The ego and its choices still exist in a parallel reality, but you're just not choosing it anymore. So you de-energize it. It doesn't become active and actual in your life. It's a possibility, and it becomes increasingly more distant as you choose the another path, and you go further and further away from it. So as long as you're still in, duality, you still have that alternative. Hasn't completely gone away, but it's just so ridiculously insane that you don't pay any attention to it. If you ever watched, did you watch the movie A Beautiful Mind? We will study it as so exactly what he did there, right? The way he overcame the voices in his head and these figures was just to ignore them. They're still there, but he doesn't interact with them. He doesn't engage with them. He ignores them, and so they cease to have the power that they had before. But as soon as he engages with them, then they come to life and they become real and they start to dominate his reality. And he understood that, and so through forgiveness, letting go. Okay, I'm going to let go of the reality of those, even though they seem to still be there. He could still see them in his mind. He just says, I'm not going to engage with them. So we can do exactly the same thing. Okay, I'm just not going to engage with anything that's coming from the ego. It's going on. Yeah, there's still chaos and mayhem and war and sickness and disease and death going on in the matrix, but I'm just not going to engage with it. I'm not going to give it importance. I'm not going to think about it. I'm not going to energize it. So, like, it's just not part of my reality. And that process is exactly what he's asking us to do. Shift into another version of reality. Our world then becomes a very different version of reality from someone who is consumed with those negative things. We live in completely different worlds. Hence the many worlds theory, right? They're living in a different world. You apparently inhabit the same reality, but actually it's very, very different. The way they perceive reality is very, very different from you, and they clash. They don't match. If you've ever, you've been in negative company, pessimists and so on, you just like it doesn't like you're just not seeing the same thing, are you? You can't really have a proper conversation because, like, okay, your version of reality and mine just really don't align. In fact, it's difficult to believe that we're in the same world because you perceive it so differently. But that's a result of their conscious choice to perceive it in that way, or maybe not conscious, unconscious choice. And your conscious choice to perceive it otherwise takes you into a different, alternate, parallel reality, which is better, much more aligned with truth, and is the pathway out of the world. That's the way out. Their way is a dead end because they can't escape. It's just negativity. Eventually, that's a very hard way because they're going to suffer and die. And they'll just keep doing that until they choose to change their mind. Dying and then coming back in, the body isn't really going to help. As I think Eckhart Tolle famously said once, he said, reincarnation isn't going to help you very much if you still don't know who you are in your next lifetime. It's not going to help.
Yeah.
You're just going to do the same thing again and again and again and again and again and on and on. It's just a cycle of birth and death, just on and on and on and on it goes until you are willing to really change your mind, which is what he's asking us to do here. Saying it's not that difficult, actually. Just here we go. I'm giving you the ideas. I'm giving you another thought system. Just practice this. You're not going to get it all at once. It's okay. Just practice, step by step, lesson by lesson. Do these reviews. So review them. So if you look at the power of the review, when you've reviewed these lessons, would you say that you've understood those lessons on a different level compared with when you did the originals? It's like, okay, suddenly maybe it makes more sense. Suddenly you see a cohesiveness in the thought system. It's like, okay, this is all really saying the same thing because they stacked up. And if you read, maybe actually just read the all five, just the key ideas, and you can see how these logically string together.
Yeah. So my meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. And then just the headlines or
just the headlines,
yeah. So I am upset because I see a meaningless world.
And you see how you strung that together. And so I'm upset. They logically, that yes, my meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world, and therefore I'm upset because I see a meaningless world, right? The one leads into another. And then see if you can connect it to the next idea.
A meaningless world engenders fear.
Yeah, and so you could say, and therefore a meaningless world also engenders fear, right? It's all logically consistent. And so
God did not create a meaningless world.
Or pure formless awareness of perfect love.
Yeah.
If you state it as that, how could a pure formless awareness of perfect love have created such a world? How could pure formless awareness have created a world of form? Do you see the logical inconsistency? It can't, because it's pure formless awareness. There is no form to it. So how can formless awareness have created form? Again, there's the paradox. Well, the answer is it can't. So then people like, okay, well then what's that saying? The world isn't real. Yes, exactly. That must be the truth then. So logically, just by being purely consistently logical, you can get to the truth, which is what philosophers do. A philosopher with a good mind will go, okay, I can work my way through this logically and I can see the truth without scientific experiment or anything. Because just putting those two statements of God created the world and God is love together, and you've got a paradox. Well, okay, this is what Yeshua saw. One of them must be false. They can't both be true. God is love. Well, okay, if God isn't love, then we're in deep trouble. And then we're really done. Then we're screwed, right? Because then there's actually no love. Then God is a megalomaniac, which is the demiurge. Then the demiurge is God, and we're totally screwed, and this is hell, and there's no escape. So that's a very if you say God isn't love, then that's a very damning thing to say. It's like there's no hope there.
Mm.
But we know that there is love in the world, that there is, a force for good and transformation and healing, and we've seen that. You can see the effects of it. So okay, so that's there. So then the alternative just must be false. Okay, so God then didn't create the world.
Mm.
Okay, that must then be false, despite what the dogma and the any religion says. They just haven't been logically consistent. The
Mm.
minds that formulated that dogma were not logically consistent because they were in the ego, and the ego was driving the whole thing. And so, of course, it's not logically consistent because the ego is, by definition, illogical and insane.
Mm.
And their primary intention in the construction of that thought system was to keep people enslaved, not to liberate them.
Mm.
But a lot of people struggle with that because then the whole institution itself, the church, is false, and I've got they really struggle because that was their rock, and you're just like
Mm.
undoing their rock. But as Jesus said, that's not really a rock; it's the sand.
Mm.
It's not going to sustain you when the adversity comes. Shit hits the fan, and now suddenly you're faced with I've lost a loved one, and I'm trying to understand why a loving God would do this.
Mm.
That teaching is not going to help you.
Mm.
Only the truth's going to help you. Okay, and then the last one.
My thoughts are images that I have made.
I've made it all up. It's meaningless because I've made it all up.
Yeah.
And my thoughts then get projected out, and they make the images of the world, right? That's what the quantum insight is. The world is a projection of thought.
Yeah.
One of the early quantum physicists, a guy called James Jeans, British quantum physicist, said that the universe begins to look more like a great thought than a great machine.
Yeah.
Very, very profound, insight in the 1930s or something. He wrote a book about quantum physics, and that's the insight. It's all thought.
Yeah.
So can you see now why your thought and your energy is so important? Because it's interacting directly in a matrix of thought or energy, and so it's obviously it's going to have an impact. It's going to change things. You have a power, that you don't think you have, but you absolutely do. You're affecting the matrix all the time through your thought and your emotion. If you consciously direct that, then miracles can happen. Really extraordinary, as we've seen.
Yeah.
Someone like Yeshua, extraordinary things can happen.
Well, even
But
even just people, these mass meditations, where large numbers of people meditate, for example, they've done experiments,
experiments,
haven't
yeah,
they? They've seen that
yeah,
it has actually, on a
mm,
physical level,
yeah.
has,
1992, I think it was, in Washington. The
yeah,
biggest one was a conference of transcendental meditators. I think 4,000 people from around the world convened, and they were meditating for several hours a day
yeah,
in a conference center or whatever. And they decided to do an experiment to say, okay, so let's get the crime stats
yes,
and see what those were in previous years, and let's get them during the 6 weeks, I think it was, of the conference. Let's get them for this period, and they combined them, and they predicted, based on previous smaller experiments, that there would be a 25% drop in the crime rate,
mm,
and that is pretty much what it was,
yeah,
within a percentage point or two. It was pretty much exactly that, and the police were baffled. The police were like, "Well, we can't explain it. Nothing really has changed. The weather's not particularly changed. Um, there's nothing that we can say is the difference." So logically, you have to say, well, the only difference was that there's a conference of 4,000
yeah,
meditators meditating for hours and hours in the day, and that's creating a frequency of peace
yeah,
that's radiating through the whole city, and people are picking that up,
yeah,
and then they're less inclined to do harmful things,
yeah,
and that changes thought, that changes behavior, and then bang, suddenly you get a 25% drop in the stats,
mm,
and people go, oh, that's magic.
mm,
No, it's just science. It's like how it works. It's energy transmission.
yeah.
um
It's the same as at Joe Dispenza's gatherings as well, when you get lots and lots of people
mm,
meditating together at his events.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's it's very powerful quantum effects start happening,
Yeah.
and you can track that in the observable. You can start measuring that as we see here. In the external, you can now they're measurable effects. And the hardcore scientific materialists dismiss those effects, but that's not good science.
No, well,
Good
that's
science,
why.
like
Yeah, that's
they're
why
the effects.
Jones is doing the
Okay.
research on it, isn't he? He's actually doing his own experiments.
Yeah.
To,
And people like Rupert Sheldrake have done
yeah,
extensive research, and he's
yeah,
if you're honest as a scientist, you have to say, well, we can't just discount these effects.
yeah,
They're there, they're real, they're observable. The scientific method is look at them, observe, make a note of your observations, and then come up with a theory that explains the observations. And if the current theory doesn't explain the observations, then the theory must be wrong. Then you've got to find a better theory.
yeah,
Scientific materialists, because it's become dogmatic, go, no, the observation must be wrong. Somehow that's wrong. It can't be. The stats don't add up, and they find all kinds of ways to really overlook the evidence, which isn't good science. Spurious science. The honest scientists will go, yeah, okay, there are effects. What is the explanation? If that explanation challenges my own model, then I should be open to that. That's how science advances, right? The current science doesn't explain it, so therefore we need to go beyond that into something deeper. But actually, if you go into quantum physics and the deepest level of science, you can explain it. They just don't want to let go of their existing paradigm, which is based on Newtonian physics, even though quantum mechanics has discredited that long ago, which is extraordinary, really, because this is 100 years old now. Surely, like catch a wake up. But what we're talking about is a fundamental shift in the mind. This is the problem. And so, scientists, like all human beings, have egos. They don't want to shift in the mind, so then they resist it. And then they find every possible way to deny it, even though the evidence is so clear. And this happens, in science, it happens in religion, it happens in business, it happens in the arts. You see, people just get dogmatically attached to a certain worldview, and they don't want to let go of it, even when evidence is showing that this actually isn't explaining the truth, and there's a better model. They don't want to let go of the old model because that keeps their ego happy and safe, and they're like, there's some kind of safety and security in that, and it takes people who are brave, courageous, and are open and honest to challenge it and say, "Oh, this isn't right." And so that's what's happening around the world. People like Rupert Sheldrake and Joe Dispenza and others in different fields are saying, no, it's not right. In medicine, someone like Rangan Chatterjee saying this isn't right. Your model's wrong. It's not getting, so it doesn't explain things really well. It's got all these undesirable effects. So it must be wrong. There must be a better way. We need a new theory here, which challenges the old theory, the scientific materialist paradigm, and ultimately will destroy it because it's not true. It's a false theory. It's trying to make this into all reality, and it's ignoring the interior aspects, which you can't do. Those absolutely exist. They're there as very real felt experiences. Scientists go, oh, that's all woo-woo stuff. Your thoughts, your emotions, your perceptions, your internal reality isn't real. Well, how can you say that? That's like weird. Like, okay, so only this stuff is real, but that which you're experiencing isn't real. How, like, that's a philosophical question. That's not a scientific question. But it's in my experience. So how can you say it's not real? Yeah, but this is where you go, and then they get very uncomfortable because their entire model just starts breaking down. So if ever you get into conversation with a scientist who's scientific materialist, particularly, say, okay, so let's talk about quantum mechanics then. Oh, they're going to be very uncomfortable because okay, that's in your science. You can't say it's not science. It is. It's been around 100 years. Or you could talk about theory of relativity, another great scientific theory. Well, what does Einstein find? Time and space are not absolute; they're relative. There's no absolute reality, in other words. They're relative. Everything's related to everything else, and it's shifting and changing. So time space is not absolute; it's relative. What does that say? The Big Bang. And the same thing. Well, okay, so then what came before the Big Bang? Oh, there was nothing there. Well, what's no thing? No thing. No form. Okay, well maybe that's God. Maybe that's pure formless awareness. Oh. So everything points you to, that there must be something else outside of the scientific materialist paradigm. For those of eyes to see, it's just obvious. And more honest scientists are acknowledging that, saying, yeah, we don't have the full picture, and we're just starting to learn the truth, which ridiculously has been there all along, because this isn't exactly new. This is the ancient wisdom that they knew all along, right? This just got buried and it got submerged in the dark ages, and then the whole scientific materialist paradigm grew up in the last 500 years, and that's suppressed it as well. But it's always been there. It just got buried and covered over. So now we've just got to rediscover it. So it's not really new age at all. It's just old age being rediscovered. It's always been there. Anyway, yeah, so it's fascinating. We can talk on and on about this, but it is cracking on. What is the time? So shall we do a meditation to close this? All good? Elaine and Jim, happy with that?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so we'll do like a 20-minute med. I'll guide you through all of these. Just give me a moment, get this ready. Okay, so just making yourself comfortable. Sitting with your feet shoulder width apart, your back straight. Cup your hands in your lap. Close your eyes. And start off by taking a nice deep breath in through the nose. Breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises. Subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Full deep inhale, pause, hold the breath briefly. Just consider this first idea, my meaningless thoughts, as showing me a meaningless world. So scan your mind. Notice any thoughts going on there. And realize that they don't mean anything. Since the thoughts of which I'm aware do not mean anything, the world that depicts them, under the world is just a projection of thought, can have no meaning. So what is producing this world is insane, and so is what it produces. So as you exhale, just kind of let all that go. Those thoughts, the meaning you've given those thoughts, the value you've given to them, all of the attachment, which then becomes an identity, just exhale it all out, blow it all away. The breeze of your breath into the nothingness that it really is. Just going, gone. Just pull the lower stomach into the spine. Expel the last remaining air out. Rest here in this calm, peaceful place beyond the insanity of your thoughts and the world. Because reality is not insane. Reality with a capital R. And so I have real thoughts as well as insane ones. I can therefore perceive a real world. Say this after me in your mind. I can therefore perceive a real world if I follow my real thoughts as my guide for perceiving. And now just breathing in and out through your nose, nice, deep, slow, rhythmical breaths. Observe the breath. Let each breath take you deeper into the real world. A world seen with true awareness. Your real thoughts guide this world. It's a positive world. It's a beneficial world. It's a world where you can experience peace and love and joy and gratitude and live an inspired and inspiring life. Although it's still not true reality, it's the best dream that you can possibly have. It's the happy dream, as the Course calls it. The happy dream of a real world reinterpreted from a new perspective, the Holy Spirit's perspective, which remembers perfect love and interprets everything according to this perfect loving awareness. And so breathe in again, nice deep breath in as you consider the second review idea for today, which is, as you breathe in, I'm upset because I see or perceive a meaningless world. I'm upset because I perceive a meaningless world. So insane thoughts are upsetting. They produce a world in which there is no order anywhere. Only chaos rules the world. It represents chaotic thinking, logically, as within, so without. And chaos has no laws. So I cannot live in peace in such a world. So I'm just going to exhale and blow this world away, this chaotic thinking that has resulted in a chaotic world, which you then try and make sense of. So a mistake we make, we try and make sense of chaos. Instead of realizing that it is just chaos and it doesn't make sense, we try and make sense of it and we give it a meaning and purpose and a value, and then we suffer because of that. So we're trying to make sense of what doesn't make sense, trying to make what is meaningless into something that is meaningful. So we're violating reality, and of course we're going to suffer. Something internally is not right. We know that. So remind yourself as you breathe in again that I cannot live in peace in such a world. It's ultimately not your home. It's a world designed to disturb your peace. Now, with a lot of mind training, a lot of forgiveness, you can learn to establish peace as your default state. But this doesn't mean that you're going to stay permanently in the world. It just means that you're learning peace, which helps you escape the world. Say, I'm grateful that this world isn't real and that I need not perceive it at all unless I choose to value it. And I do not choose to value what is totally insane and has no meaning. And then just exhale to let go of all of this total insanity that you valued. Particularly if there's a negative thought in your mind about a person, a situation in your life, just blow that away. Imagine it's like a dark cloud, black smoke, just being blown away to the nothingness that it really is with the breeze of your breath. This is totally insane. It doesn't mean anything. Can you feel a sense of relief as you blow it away? You're just letting it go, discarding it all. It's totally insane. It has no meaning. It has no purpose. find a sense of peace, stillness. Breathe into that, a few deep breaths. And this is the inner sanctuary. This is your safe haven in the world. It's no way physical. It's going to shelter you. It's a haven in your mind. A haven of sanity, peace, love, joy in an insane world. Fortunately, it's always there. It goes with you wherever you go. It can never leave you. So whatever situation you're in, wherever you are, wherever you go, this is always there. So breathing in again, deep full inhale breath. Do that. Remind yourself of the third review idea for today, from lesson 13. A meaningless world engenders fear. So the totally insane engenders fear because it is completely undependable and offers no grounds for trust. How can you rely on what's completely undependable and chaotic? We try and get some kind of stability and reliability from the world, but the more we do that, the more we realize it's not dependable. There's no grounds for trust in physical reality. There's nothing in madness is dependable. Holds out no safety and no hope. But such a world isn't real. Say, I've given it the illusion of reality and have suffered from my belief in it. But now I choose to let go of this belief and place my trust in reality, the capital R. So exhale to activate this choice. Have a sense of letting go of any fear, any doubt thoughts, any worry and anxiety. Just blow it all away with the breeze of your breath. The nothingness that it really is. So in choosing this, I will escape all the effects of the world of fear because I am recognizing that it does not exist. So choice helps you let go of one false reality and perceive a different reality, another alternative reality that Yeshua calls the real world, the happy dream. And you start escaping all the effects of the unreal world of fear by simply denying that they exist. You're recognizing, right, rethinking, reinterpreting the seeming effects of fear in the world and just recognizing that it doesn't exist. This is a false reality, a version of reality that is false, that is meaningless, that is insane, that has no meaning, that has no purpose, that doesn't even exist, although it may seem to in your experience. Simply that you've chosen, made a bad choice, and that's taken you down this nightmare path of a false reality, which is now seemingly your reality, but it's just the product of a false choice. So you can make a different choice, can make a better choice. Power of choice and power of decision is still your own. Makes this point in review of lesson 14. So breathing in again, nice deep breath in. As you contemplate this idea that God did not create a meaningless world. Or in our translated alternative heart of letting go language, pure formless awareness of perfect love did not create a meaningless world. So how can a meaningless world exist if pure formless awareness of perfect love did not create it? Ask yourself that question. If this is the ultimate source of all reality, the ultimate awareness behind all reality, then how can a meaningless world, seemingly apart from it, even exist? And so the answer is it doesn't really exist. It's a figment of your imagination, product of a false belief system. So this pure formless awareness, this source, is the source of all meaning. And everything that is real is in its awareness, or in his mind, as the original says. So it's a source of all meaning, and everything that is real is in its awareness. And it must be in my awareness too, because perfect love extends itself as me. Original is, it is in my mind too, because he created it with me, but translation I think is more profound. It's my awareness too, because perfect love extends itself as me. It is me. I am it. I am one with the Father, as Yeshua is quoted saying in the Bible. I am one with the Father, and the Father is one with me. My Father remains source. The source of all being is what I am. That's what he was saying. And the Pharisees and Sadducees called that blasphemy. Actually, it's the simple truth. Now, why should I continue to suffer from the effects of my own insane thoughts when the perfection of being is my home? Original is the perfection of creation is my home, but creation is really this being that is who you really are. And so I choose to remember the power of my decision and recognize where I really live. I have a choice, in other words, and I must exercise that power of decision or choice. I do that moment by moment. In every moment I'm choosing whether I'm aligning myself with the perfection of being that is my true home, or I'm aligning myself with the meaningless world made up by the ego that is not my home, that is a nightmare, a false reality in which I'm trapped. So my choice is going to get me out of the trap if I choose correctly and consistently to go in the right direction, out of the world, away from the world. And that's what these thoughts and ideas are helping us do. So breathing in again, nice deep breath in. Hold the breath briefly as you consider the final idea for review today, which is that my thoughts are images that I have made. So I've made them all up. Whatever I see, whatever I perceive reflects my thoughts. It's my thoughts that tell me where I am and what I am. The fact that I perceive a world in which there is suffering, loss, and death shows me that I am perceiving only the representation of my insane thoughts, and am not allowing my real thoughts to cast their beneficent awareness on what I perceive. Beneficent light is and what I see is the original, but light is translated as awareness in alternative language. Yet, God's way is sure. in the original, yet perfect love's way is sure. The images I have made cannot prevail against it, because it is not my will that they do so. I don't really want them to do that. The original says, my will is his, and I will place no other gods before him. Now, translation, that means my awareness is the same as perfect love. So I have the identical awareness, perfect loving awareness is my own true awareness. I am one with this awareness. I'm one with the source, my being of my awareness. And so I choose not to obscure this awareness any longer with my false beliefs. The gods are the false beliefs that you use to obscure this loving awareness. And so you're choosing not to do that anymore. By that power of choice, those false beliefs no longer have power over you. And you align yourself with the truth. Your beliefs are now true. They align you with the truth, the Holy Spirit, the moments of perfect love, and ultimately with this fundamental awareness we call God, perfect loving awareness. And I go in a different direction, completely opposite to the ego. You're moving away from the ego and out of this world by systematically practicing these thoughts, by letting go of the thoughts that oppose them. You are doing the mind training necessary to correct your mind, to heal your mind and restore it to your own true nature, your own fundamental awareness, which is perfect love. And so it is. Amen. So I'll just read the 5 key ideas in there, just a key form, so you can see the consistency of the thought system behind all of them. And I'll connect the dots for you. So breathing in, one deep breath in. See, you can hold it while I read these. So my meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. And so I'm upset because I seem to perceive a meaningless world, which engenders fear. But God did not create this meaningless world. Pure formless awareness of perfect love did not create a meaningless world, fortunately. So none of it has any meaning or truth. And so my thoughts are just images that I've made up. I've projected my thoughts outward and I've made up a bunch of images. The world is made up by my thought. Illusory thought creates illusory images, creates an illusory world, an illusory reality, a dream world, false world, an illusion, whatever you want to call it. Honestly, I call it the optical delusion of consciousness. So you can see how all this is related and how all of it frees your mind into the truth of your awareness. So just end the meditation, take a few minutes. Letting go of everything else, just coming into this very deep, peaceful awareness beyond the world, beyond the body, beyond the thought system of the ego. Lies your true awareness. Just surrender to that. There's nowhere else to go. There's nothing else to do. Nothing else to think about. You just breathe, relax, and be still. And surrender into this awareness. Observe the breath, breathing in and out through your nose. Just sinking inwards, going deeper and deeper, deeper and deeper into this lovely, peaceful, calm state of awareness. Your true nature, your fundamental awareness, beyond which you cannot go. And just rest in that. Rest in the being of this awareness. Feel that you are this awareness. There's no difference between you and this awareness. It is you, you're it. You merge your mind into it, surrender to it. You remain in it in a sacred place beyond all thoughts, beyond images, beyond words, beyond all the illusory meanings of this world. Lies this fundamental awareness we call God. Just allow yourself to experience this fundamental awareness fully, completely, wholly, deeply, peacefully for a couple of minutes of deep silence. Nowhere else to go, nothing else to see, nothing else to think about. Just breathe, relax, and surrender to this awareness for the next 2 minutes. And so just gently coming back, bring your mind back into your body via the breath. and the senses and the world. And on the count of 3, you're going to open your eyes. So 1, breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises, a subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. You pause at the top of the inhale, smile, scan your mind, and notice any thoughts, emotions, particularly anything that makes you feel upset in any way. Remind yourself that I'm only upset because I perceive a meaningless world. And a meaningless world engenders fear. But fortunately, God or pure formless awareness of perfect love did not create a meaningless world. Just breathe in this pure awareness. Realize that these are just images that you've made up, projected thought, and spell them all out, letting it all go. To the breeze of your breath. With the breeze of your breath, you're letting them go, just surrendering into the still, peaceful, calm presence beyond them. So on the count of 2, notice the weight of your body pressing down into the chair or the sofa wherever you're sitting. Feel your feet touching the ground. Your hands. Notice maybe there's a subtle flow of air on your skin. Breathe that air in. Notice any smell in your nose, any taste in your mouth. And notice what you're hearing in the surrounding environment. Just noticing all these things in this very still, calm, surrendered state. State of mind without illusions, in which only the truth is true, and all the meaningless thoughts and ideas, images that you projected out just don't mean anything anymore. So it is said and so it is done. I anchor this state in for the rest of the evening, on into tomorrow. Set that intention, by your intention, so it is said and so it is done. And now on the count of 3, you're going to open your eyes. So just look around for a minute or two just to come out of the meditation, noticing the room around you in this very clear, calm, peaceful awareness. Don't name anything, don't judge it in any way. Just observe in this very, very peaceful, calm awareness state. Notice how peaceful and calm you do feel. The more you notice it, acknowledge this state, the more you make it your default state of awareness. And so just Anchor that state in. I'm grateful for it and continue to choose it whenever you have a choice. This peaceful state is always the right choice, and sanity and chaos, yeah, and everything goes with it is the wrong choice. Remember that. So that brings us to the end of the meditation and tonight's session. So thank you, Archie, Kim.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Ryan. Yeah, only a pleasure. Only a pleasure. Glad you could make it. So yeah, Archie, are we doing a session tomorrow? Yeah.
We are. I want
2:30.
to ask actually, Jonathan, if perhaps because I need to feed the animals, because I'm on myself tomorrow, so between 4 and 5, and then take the dogs out for a walk. So if we start at 2:30, is it possible to to have a break and then resume, or would you prefer that we start at 5 o'clock, like we did today? What would work better for you?
So I've probably a commitment tomorrow evening at about. I need to be gone by about 5:30.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So
Yes.
we need to finish by 5:30. So we can do it earlier. You want to start at like 2 or 1? That's
No,
possible.
yeah, unfortunately, I can't start. The earliest I can start in the afternoon would be 2:30.
Okay.
Could we maybe do kind of 90 minutes?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, whenever you want to go. If you need to go at
Yeah,
4.
because I'll need to. Because I need to go at 4 to basically feed the animals and take the dogs out and stuff. So,
Yeah, that's fine.
or I could do that, or I could sort of go at 4. I mean, I tend to feed them at 4, but I could sort of stretch it to 4:30.
Yeah, and then that gives us 2 hours.
Yeah, 2 hours. Yeah,
Yeah, cool. Okay,
yeah.
I'll
So
see you tomorrow.
morning. Yeah. So,
See you tomorrow. So 2:30. All right.
yeah.
Great.
Are you Kim tomorrow?
No, I won't make it. I'm working.
Yeah.
No,
And you're going off on Saturday. So enjoy your breakaway.
thank you. All
And
right.
we'll see you next week.
Mm.
Yeah, Monday, Monday evening could work. How does that work for you, Archie? We're going to do Sunday. Actually, are you going to be awake, Kim, aren't you? If you want to join the holotropic on Sunday, you can join that. We're going to do a holotropic session because we didn't do it this last Sunday. So that's up to you. If you're taking your
Yeah,
laptop and stuff, you could connect. It could
maybe.
be part of your
Yeah.
experience. Yeah,
Mm.
we're gonna start it at 7 your time.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So join if you want. Otherwise, yeah, I'll run a session next week,
Okay.
probably Monday or Wednesday evening. Oh, I see you tired.
I'm so tired. I know it was a long session. It was good, but it was long. I was struggling. I
Yeah.
think I
All
need
right.
to sleep. All right. All right. Good
Okay.
night.
No.
Good night, Archie.
Yes. Good night, Kim. Good night,
Good
Jonathan.
night. Good
Okay. See you
night.
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah. See you tomorrow.
Okay.
Bye. Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Okay. So that is a wrap for today. If you were watching the live stream or the recording and you enjoyed this, first of all, hit the subscribe button. Do this a couple of times a week so you'll get notified whenever I go live, be able to catch the live stream or the recordings, or free. If you want to dive a bit deeper, head over to lifepool.com. You can see that in the background. Just type in lifebuild as it's spelled in the background.com into your browser, or you can click the link below in the comments box, and why not subscribe to receive a free inspirational quotes like the one I showed you at the beginning of the video. And usually there's some commentary, maybe some other quotes, similar to what you saw today. You get all that delivered free of charge into your Telegram account. So you'll need a mobile number and it needs to have Telegram connected to it. So sign up for Telegram, download Telegram, put it on your mobile device. It's a free messaging app similar to WhatsApp, but I use it because it's less cluttered and it's also a better messaging app than WhatsApp. So you'll get some free inspirational quotes. You'll get mind training material from A Course in Miracles, the daily lesson, including a breath break or mini meditation, or sometimes a couple to help you practice the lesson for the day. And also notifications about these live sessions, so you can join the live sessions via Zoom link, which I'll send you. If you would like to, free of charge for 3 weeks, and give it a go. If you like it, then you can choose to stick around, but no commitment, no obligation. So go to lifebuild.com, sign up, and you'll be on the Telegram group, and I'll be communicating with you about these sessions and everything else that I'm doing. So check it out, and I hope you'll do that. I hope you'll subscribe, and maybe I'll see you in person in one of these sessions soon. Okay, so thank you for watching or listening, and namaste, which means the awakened, peaceful self in me acknowledges and honors that same peaceful and awakened self, Christ in you. Bye for now. Peace.